Again, Adrian said this will all be posted on the city website.
Your broadcast.
I am.
Same link.
No, I posted it to, I'll send it to you.
The new one.
Yeah. I started a new one, so I'll send
Put
it.
it on Messenger.
I'll send it. The messenger group, I sent it to you.
I'll send it.
Okay.
I'll take it.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
if I give these out?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll start handing these out.
Hold them up to the camera one by one. Yeah, they're ugly. It's all right. I'll hold up the other. It's fine. There you go. We had already switched it to slide 4, so you'll need to get a picture of the. Yeah, I'll zoom in. Zoom in. I'll zoom in while it's on the TV, but I never know if that's gonna work or not. I figure y'all can pause the video to read any of those you want to read. Thanks.
You got it. It's going to be moderated by me. It's going to be to discuss fire protection services for the city of McLendon-Chisholm and the unincorporated areas of Fire District 22. There will be no votes or any formal action taken on subjects discussed during this meeting, as this town hall meeting will only present an exchange of ideas and information between the city officials or among city officials and members of the public. With that being said, folks, as the mayor, I am going to ask you, I know this has been a long-standing issue within our city since before I was elected. I'm going to ask you to be professional, be polite. We want to hear what you have to say, but if you start getting off track, I'm going to tell you you're getting off track with the point about fire protection. Okay? This is not a town hall meeting to bash me or any of the council, nor will I allow my council to do the same thing to you as the citizen. I ask that respect both ways. Alright? The long-standing issue we've had here was whether or not we were going to keep services with the volunteer fire department as it was, whether there was going to be a start from scratch, start up from scratch, or stand up from scratch, whatever you want to call it, fire department. There's also been talk about an integration or merger of the volunteer fire department with Chief Simmons as a city-owned department. I'm going to allow the two chiefs to give you information based on what they've worked on, a presentation of what they think is the two fire experts in this area, what a integration or a merger of the department is, or why it is good for you. As you will see, there are posters across the walls on timelines about the bidding process and all that was put together by councilperson Ball. Okay? Once the chiefs have finished giving you that presentation, we will open it up for questions, whatever you need to say or what you want to say concerning fire protection towards us as a city council. Okay? Like I said, please keep it civil. This isn't the time to bash anybody for the way they voted, the way they've acted, anything. This is about your fire protection. All right. Chief Simmons, Chief Murphy, the floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens. It's been an adventure. I'm standing before you again doing one of my least favorite things, and that's public speaking. But I've gotten a little better, I think, over the past few months that I've been here. What we're going to go over tonight is just some of the things that Chief Murphy and myself have been working on in regards to making sure that we provide the best opportunity, best solution for Mr. Simmons. Sir.
Are you using the mic?
No, sir. I'm just using my voice. We don't have a.
Can you hear him on that recording?
I think so.
We should have.
Hopefully somebody watching can chime in.
Shouldn't we, Lisa? Shouldn't we have an official record?
Turn them on, point them towards you.
Shouldn't the tape be running?
It is running.
Okay,
But
then
where he can be heard. is what
he needs to be using the mic.
I don't know, we can hear him better than we can all you folks up there.
Everybody hear me okay?
Absolutely.
That's
It's
not.
not whether
No, no.
they can hear you, it's whether.
So whether the recording can hear.
I agree.
Let's pull the mic closer to
Those
him.
two over there.
Yeah. Folks, we got a little bit of a technical difficulty. We need to have a mic.
People on my recording say they hear him very well. Just FYI. I know you need an official recording, but.
How close do I have to be to the mic? Do I have to be close to the area?
Yeah, you can just walk in front of it and find the camera.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right, I think we've got the technical difficulties worked out. All right, so good evening again. I'm Jim Simmons, for those of you who don't know me. I was hired April 24th by the council to come in and help build municipal fire department. What we are presenting tonight, like I said earlier, Chief Murphy and myself have been working to make sure that we provide the best fire protection for District 22. We feel that we've given 110% to come up with that best solution for you as a citizen. So what we're going to go over, a few slides, short, not very long. We want to give you the opportunity to be able to ask questions and get maybe some of the questions you've had for a long time answered. So we'll start. Everybody have a handout? Excuse me, I might have to have some water. All right. On the first slide, what we're going to talk about is just kind of some of the things we're going to discuss. We'll talk about MCFR standalone. It does not include MCFD. That would be just McLendon-Chisholm Fire Rescue, standing up, hiring all its staff, building its fire station, all the necessities that we need to be able to function as a fire department. Second one we'll talk about is the merger option. The pros and cons of the merger options. The benefits of bringing the two agencies together to continue to build off the foundation that's already been established. And then the 5 pieces of the puzzle, we call it, the merger plan, getting our dispatch, which we have interlocal agreements that have been presented to council for dispatch and the fire protection in the unincorporated area. We have staffing, which SAFER, those of you who haven't heard, we were awarded 6 SAFER grants from FEMA in order to assist us in being able to hire staff to make sure that we have the coverage we need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then, of course, the budget, which was recently approved, or not necessarily approved, but approved or adopted last council meeting. And then an interlocal agreement. That interlocal agreement between the city, MCFR, and MCFD would be the process that would allow us to start a transition period. Those are the things that are out there for 5 puzzle pieces. 4 of those we have in play. Obviously the last one, the merger, or the ability to merge, is the puzzle piece that we're actually missing. So on MCFR standalone, again, that's McLendon Fire Rescue standalone, hiring all its people, building the station. MCFD is not included in this process. The pros, obviously, it's city-owned and operated. City-owned, operated, and managed. Cons requires us to be able to stand this thing up October 1st, so it requires us to build a temporary station of some sort, whether it's a tent, whatever it may be. Building a new station fairly immediately, because you can only operate out of a tent for so long, or whatever our temporary station might be. Hiring and training new staff. One of the things with hiring and training new staff is they're unfamiliar with the district. With the merger process, we have men and women that are dedicated that already know the district. It's one less step as a chief that I have to worry about training them on. Purchasing additional equipment outside the merger budget. Bunker gear, 15 sets of bunker gear, $3,200 a piece. Air packs, 7, $67,500. Rescue equipment, $5,000 to $10,000 depending on what you buy. But there would be additional equipment that would need to be purchased in order to do the standalone. One option if we do the standalone is current Texas Forestry Service grants that are in play with McLendon-Chisholm Fire Department now. We would lose those. We wouldn't have the opportunity to be a part of those. Now we could start the process over, which we would. We would start the process over and start the process of applying for grants through the Texas Forestry Service. Possible loss or assistance from TxDOT, which we've heard, depending on what goes on with 205, the widening, the station is there. We've heard bits and pieces that TxDOT may be willing to come, sit down, have a conversation with us if that was to be the fire department, if that's the only station that we have within the city. And then the last one we found out, did some research on, the radios that we have in place, we would need to purchase some additional radios to make sure that if we were to stand alone, MCFD sits over here, we sit over here by ourselves, that we all have the abilities to communicate with each other, communicate with other agencies in the county, so it would probably cost us some additional monies to purchase additional radios to continue to move forward. Chief Murphy, sorry, I didn't introduce Chief Murphy. Chief Murphy, McLendon-Chisholm Fire Department Chief. We've worked long and hard together on this thing. Chief's gonna help out, he's gonna jump in here and provide some information to you as we move forward.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, Council, thank you for this opportunity. Citizens, thank you. Appreciate it again. My name is Chief Patrick Murphy, McLendon-Chisholm Fire Department. Some of the things that we've discussed and go over some of the pros and cons of a MCFR and MCVFD merger. Some of the pros would be it would remain city-owned and operated once the integration of everything was complete. It would also provide us a seamless transition of fire protection services, Fire District 22. We already have the equipment and everything is in place. So if the merger were to happen October 1, you would notice no change in service. Staffing already in place, as I said, they're already trained, familiar with the fire district. We would maintain our rankings, which is the last meeting that they had up in the rankings for fire apparatus and equipment. We would already have the station apparatus, equipment such as bumper gear, which is the full ensemble that you see us wear, the pants, the coats, the helmet, hood, and gloves, if you're not familiar with all that. The rescue equipment, we already have the 2 sets of rescue equipment. That would be the Hearst tool that most people are familiar with, or the Jaws of Life. We would have no need for a temporary station. We would be able to convert the station that's already in place off of 205 into a living quarters if that's how the council chooses to go. Possible assistance from TxDOT. Councilmember Herron stated before, he's on the committee. There is that opportunity to TxDOT to replace that station, that being the only fire station within the city limits in the district. TxDOT would have the opportunity to help assistance with building a new fire station. Ability to assess fleet. Councilmember Vulcan has some of the apparatus up here. The one on the left is MCVFD's current fleet. The one on the right is the one that they are currently in Pilot Point. Is that correct?
Correct.
Having lights and stuff put on. So that would give us the ability to assess the equipment, replace with what they purchased, if the merger happens, and sell older equipment and use that money to purchase other equipment that would not have to come out of city budget. Another pro for the 501, we can continue our status for grants. This part that I'm going to go over, we just added to it so it's not in your packets. So if you're taking pictures or anything, you want to take pictures of the screen and add that, that's what we gave the council right at the beginning of the start. Ability to maintain the ranking, we could use that as an auxiliary. You could do community service projects and stuff out of that, junior firefighter programs, safe sitter programs, certified emergency response team, get the community involved. It also gives us the ability to do fundraisers. I know Councilmember Herron is interested in that. It could help us to do fundraisers to help alleviate costs that it takes us to provide service to the county in an incorporated area. Some of the cons, it's going to be the integration complexity. There are some judiciary and congressional things you have to go to. Two government agencies can't just switch apparatus stations properly back and forth without going through the proper process. So there is no timeline for that. Our lawyer has stated that it could go really quick, or it could take up to 1 to 2 years. The only big problem would be the Engine 42, which is currently a Texas Forestry Service grant. It's a 10-year grant. If you turn it over within that time, you have to apply to them, and it could cost us up to 90% the cost of that vehicle if we were to keep it, or we would turn it back over to them. But it's just a process. We'd have to send a letter to them. I believe she has, Councilmember Malcolm has it under grant eligibility, the bottom right, and it would be up to Texas Forestry Service to decide what they want to do with that grant. It either could stay put, or they could collect the apparatus. It would not be known until we filed that letter. Anything to add, Chief?
said, we've taken, obviously this is stuff that we've worked on. We've presented a couple different options in council over the last couple of months, and we once wanted to kind of put something together that was kind of short and sweet, but kind of hit home some of the things that we've discussed for many months, for you have an opportunity to look at. And throughout this, you might have some questions that come up, or you might have some questions about a particular subject. So we wanted to get this out to you. The last slide that we have in play
It's up here. This is the 5 pieces that guarantees operational capabilities October 1, 2018. Keep going over dispatch.
Absolutely. Dispatch, we talked about earlier, is the ILAs, interlocal agreements from the county. County has offered up interlocal agreements for dispatching. That fee is going to be an annual fee of $10,000. To be honest with you, based on dispatching fees, around $10,000 is a pretty good deal from the county. Can't complain about that. The next one we have on there is the interlocal agreement from the county. It says that the city of or MCFR would be responsible or respond to the unincorporated area. Obviously, the funds that come in from that is in the amount of $67,500. Staffing with the SAFER grant, we kind of hit that a little bit earlier. That SAFER grant we put in for Miss Lisa worked many hours back in the end of April up until when we have to have it submitted by the end of May. We did it. She worked hard enough and got these things submitted in a month's time. It normally takes cities and agencies many months to do. But we were able to do it, and we were able to receive that first grant. That first grant gives us 6 funded positions. And those 6 funded positions allow us to staff A, B, and C shift, however we want to do it, with 2 people per shift. Our plan that we've talked about and discussed is having 3 full-time shift guys on each shift, 1 guy on every 24-hour shift. And then we would supplement that second position with part-time firefighters. Certified firefighters would come in. So we would run 2 firefighters, EMT, or paramedics on a 24-hour shift. And then we obviously would have volunteers that would help supplement that. So what that grant has allowed us to do is to offset that cost for the next couple of years for the city budget, for the funding, for benefits, salary and benefits of those employees. Merger budget, go ahead.
Mayor, the county fire services, what we have on August 28th agenda was originally set for that. Commissioner Bailey asked the mayor to propose them, and that was September 5th?
Yeah, it's changed.
September 5th.
Merger budget, we presented a budget. The budget we presented was a budget based on if we were to merge the 2 agencies together, MCFD, MCFR come together to completely stand up MCFR. That budget was presented a couple weeks ago to council, and it was approved from council.
Correction, I'm sorry, it was not September 5th, it was September 11th.
Hello.
So
If you're talking about Commissioner Hill.
Yeah, it's about the 2.
Thank you. September 11th, my apologies.
So we've accomplished the top 4, the last one that we're waiting on, the last puzzle piece. And we feel that in that last puzzle piece, to be able to achieve our goal of standing up MCFR and providing you citizens the best fire protection that you deserve, we feel that having an interlocal agreement between MCFR, the city, MCFD, would allow us to be able to start the process of the transition or the merger, whatever you want to call it, to make sure that we do our due diligence, that we take care of all documentation, that we allow all the process to run smoothly and not be rushed. And eventually, whether it's 1 month, 6 months, a year, I don't know exact time frame. We've tried to get exact time frames. We just haven't been able to achieve that goal. But both of us stand before you because we believe this is the best option. We aren't going to back out. Chief Murphy has said over and over, there's no backouts. We believe this is what's best for this community.
All members of the MCBFD have filed applications to join the city fire department.
Absolutely. So we feel that this is the best solution for this community. Sir?
Can you explain the line or 2, I mean, you say it was on today's agenda. Can you explain basically what the outcome of line item 2 was?
The interlocal county fire services, is that what, sir?
What was the outcome though?
That one has been tabled to
September 11th.
Okay, so that's not complete.
No, sir, that is not completed, and we put completed under dispatch. That was not completed either. Both those items have been presented to council. Interlocal agreements have been presented to council, but it's been tabled to the September 11th meeting.
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Did I understand Chief Murphy to say that he was going to rely upon a fundraising efforts to provide services to the unincorporated areas?
No, sir. The fundraisers, if we keep the 501c4, we could utilize that to do fundraisers to help supplement the cost of the county contract for the services to the county. It won't be solely based on the fundraisers.
Is the county going to continue that contract? I mean, this,
That's up,
As far as we know.
Was a stopgap measure.
as far as we know, yes, sir. That's up to the county on a year-to-year basis.
You can't guarantee it.
No, sir, we can't guarantee.
Not for the county, no, sir.
That's the agreement that's sent.
Well, is it going to October? There's
No, no, no,
guarantee.
no. The agreement that was sent by the county that's been delayed till
Next
September
budget
is the agreement.
That's it.
Would be for
For
October
the year.
1.
For the next
The
year.
county is covered till September 30th under a current contract.
And then they will continue it.
Then that's the new contract from October 1 to 2018 to September 30th, 2019.
What was the funding level on that?
67.5.
67,000.
Yes, sir. Mr. Kippen, I'm sorry, did you have a question or I skipped you? Mr.
Now, go ahead.
Mr. Newman?
Are both plans for 6-day staffing or 7 days?
7.
Both of them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and do you have rough budgets to compare the two?
We do have budgets that we can compare. I do not have two budgets tonight. I do have the initial budget that was adopted or presented to council and accepted at the last council meeting. We do have a copy of that we can actually, Miss Lisa, can you pull that budget up, the one that was adopted by council? And I apologize if you have a question, I don't call you by your name, I don't know you, but some of these gentlemen I've talked to numerous times and have come up, so I apologize for that. Oh. Yes, sir.
Could you explain the staffing, the SAFER grant, from how much is it, how long does it provide for the city, and when does the city become responsible for full coverage?
Absolutely.
From just your portion, I got a big budget that I don't have.
You know,
I mean, I can
probably-
pull up the public safety
we
within the
can,
budget.
we can get copies of the budget that was accepted by council, and we'll be happy to get you a copy of that.
So, I'm sorry, Adrian Balcom said that the rest of this material will be posted on the website. Can we add that to the materials that will be posted?
The one that was accepted by council.
That entire budget is on the website.
Yes.
I
that
just
is-
don't have your, all of your public safety is not broken out the way we've been looking at
Okay,
it.
so we can get that.
I'll put it
Obviously
in one
posted.
location next week.
Okay. Councilman Balcom will make sure that she puts that one location that will have the current budget that was adopted, along with probably the breakdown of the SAFER grants as well, for people to see that too. So, Ms. Lisa, can you pull up the SAFER grant real quick? It's on that same memory stick that I provided you. Yes, sir.
So my understanding on the SAFER grant is 4 years. I don't know the total dollar amount, but have you projected from year 5 out what the impacts are financially to the city?
No, sir, at this time we have not, but that is something that we have definitely talked about, that once we
Chief,
determine,
can you make sure you're in front of the mic?
once we determine that obviously the direction we're going, we will sit down and start developing our 3-year, 5-year plan. And in that 3-year, 5-year plan, we would obviously start addressing the needs for the SAFER grant when the funding goes out in that 4th year. So, and I'm going to refer to Lisa too at some of this on the FEMA grants, because she's got lots of answers, but I'll show you what we have posted up here. It's a breakdown of the first 12 months of what the city, what we're receiving from FEMA, and then what the city's cost would be for the first 2 years and then that 3rd year. So you'll notice on the first year, total cost for the first year is $336,000. Total applicant share, which which is the city would cost us $84,000 in that first year. The federal share is going to be $252,000. Second year, it continues. You notice in the third year, it changes course a little bit. They start transitioning you off the federal funds. That third year, the city, the applicant share jumps up to $218,400. The federal share reduces. And in that fourth year, the city assumes all responsibilities of those positions. So obviously in that first year, we're going to start assessing and preparing and figuring out what we need to do and how we're going to plan for that fourth year, that third and fourth year, because obviously it's going to take the city additional funds to be able to support those positions.
Jason,
Sir?
please make note that the city is not obligated to continue those positions at the end of the grant.
Correct. So, as Councilman Turnbull said, the city is not obligated. After that third year, if the city decides that they do not want to carry on with those full-time positions, they are not obligated to carry on those positions. Yes, ma'am.
Why isn't there a third option? Keep MCVFD the way it's been, which has worked for 40 years?
For many
And
years.
we've been here for 20 years, and we have had very good experience with MCVFD. And that costs us what, $300,000 for a year? We don't have to build a new station, we don't have to buy new equipment. And yet, everything you guys are merging is gonna cost us, as citizens, a lot of money. I don't see that it's helping us save any money.
Council, anybody want to help me out on this one? I mean, ma'am, I completely understand what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
We're gonna
and-
have three options, and we're gonna have two options. and I
The-
think
the
we should have
option-
three options.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I think that question would be better served when he's done with his presentation. For you to be able to ask the council or voice your opinion that is what you would like to see versus a merger or integration or a stand-up department. Because that's part of what a town hall is, hearing your opinion. What is it you really want?
Okay, I'll wait.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Mr. Nichols?
In the standalone version, would we essentially be looking at two independent departments that are each fully staffed, and that one would serve as backup for the other?
The standalone option would have the city municipal and fire department, and then you'd have, technically, I guess you would want to call it a county fire department.
But if the city's not funding the county, or if the city's not funding the VFD any longer, how do they maintain the same staff and equipment that they have now?
We wouldn't maintain the staff, we would be dormant.
Folks, can I ask you something, please? And it was brought to my attention, we're trying to do things correctly. One is Chief Simmons being reported there for the record. Can we hold our questions until he's done with the presentation? Because in all fairness, we need to be able to record you guys as well. Unfortunately, you'll have to stand at the podium, but that way, he can get through that, and then we can hear whatever you guys need to express as far as your concerns or your desires concerning fire service.
Put this on in.
All right, so we'll, if we can get your question, as soon as I get finished, we'll let you ask your question, sir. I think the mayor would like to wait for questions until we can get you in front of the podium. So I'm going to finish up my part so we can get you folks up there and be able to ask all the questions you want to ask.
Thank you.
All right. So I'd like to kind of summarize a little bit, and I have a statement that I would like to make to council. And so council, when you hired me, I promised you I'd create a fire department. And I feel that we have. We've accomplished it. MCFR is here. Yeah, I'm going to just stand behind the podium so I quit walking. How's that? All right. You created and you charged me with the responsibility of bringing the department to fruition. Creating the department from the ground up is uncharted territory. Even though I've been a part of creating the department in the past, each situation is unique, and this one has been very unique. I took this position with an open mind in regard that what steps would be needed to be taken to make the department fully functional and efficient. and I'm still committed to those goals. I know some of you have doubts about merging with MCFD, and some of you feel that merging assets with MCFD somehow takes away from MCFR, and it does not. It continues with our vision. Merging in no way diminishes MCFR. It just makes good business sense to merge the two departments with all its assets together, and makes sense to use human resources that have served the city for so many years. I want you to know these many months, I've listened to all your concerns, even had great conversations over some of your concerns. Each of you that are opposed to merging has specific concerns, and those concerns are valid. Councilmember Balcom, one of your concerns is hiring MCFD personnel as city employees. I want to assure you that I understand your concerns. And please know, even though the intent is to merge assets and employees hired will go through an open and fair hiring process. If MCFD personnel hired, they will be held to the same MCFR high standards as any new employee would be. There are no free rides. Everyone hired earns their spot based on their knowledge, skills, and abilities and qualifications, and keeps their spots based on performance standards. Mayor Pro Tem Turnbull, you said there's a 99% likelihood you would support the merger if it was financially the best option. And I've explored an independent MCFR and the merger many times. And the merger always ends up being less expensive. I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that we have shown the merger is the most physically responsible way. Councilmember Herron, I've heard your concerns regarding inequities that exist in the city and paying more than it is fair to the county. I agree there are no inequities, or there are inequities, and I can assure you that once we know what direction we move forward, those inequities will be fully reviewed and solutions will be sought, whether that involves billing in the county, instituting a crash tax, extensive fundraising efforts, or a combination of thereof. Mayor Short, Councilmember Larkin, Councilmember Bloom. I haven't had a lot from you, but I do appreciate the support and the guidance and the opportunities that you've given to me to continue to move this forward. You've asked tough questions. Sometimes I didn't answer them very well. But the questions that you asked of me forced me to do even better. And that's each and every one of you. Each and every one of you have challenged me. And each time you challenge me, it continues to make me stronger. So, with that being said, I'd like to summarize this up and let these lovely citizens have an opportunity to be able to speak and not hear me anymore. Chief, you want to catch that?
In the summary, we believe that the MCFR and the MCVFD merger plan will best serve the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm and the citizens of Fire District 22. This plan allows us for the time needed to perform our due diligence to ensure that the MCFR provides the best transition and fire emergency services to our citizens. The plan also allows for immediate stand-up of the MCFR per council direction and enables the creation of one fire department. The merger plan allows us to move forward on making a great department, allowing us to follow up with process for fundraisers, for the cost of county response, tech stock for the fire station, economic development, fire inspections, and all the other things that we discuss about safe sitter programs, community involvement with CERT programs and all that. We'd like to thank everybody for coming out, council, for this opportunity to discuss in this town hall forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, both of the Chief Foreman and Chief Murphy. All right, folks, now is your opportunity. If you don't mind, if you can stand in front of the podium, make sure the light's on the mic so that it's turned on. With your name, address. I know we're also doing the unincorporated areas, and voice what's your opinion, concern about fire services.
I'm writing down my address.
Object all day long, but it has already been that.
I second it.
The individuals in Fire District 22, because of the statement that was made in the County Commissioners Court that we would ensure the decision that the people in the unincorporated area of Fire District 22 can come in here and have their say on it. Whether you agree with it or not, they have been allowed.
Okay, if they have an issue with that, they have to talk to the county directly. We don't have authority like that.
Okay. I'm willing to
Please use your
listen to what their
microphones.
concerns are.
We can't hear the discussion.
What happens here tonight, as far as what our ideas and what we discuss in the next meeting, will ultimately affect them. And I want to hear what they have to say, because whatever fire department is up on October 1 does matter to both.
Point of order, what was posted publicly for this meeting was that it would be open for everybody.
We understand that, however, Mayor Short, that was on his decision. The last meeting that we had was not to have that. We did not say that to have it on that agenda item.
I put down that we were going to have a town hall meeting over fire protection.
Yes, we did say.
The agenda was posted with the people in Fire District 22.
It was outside the council.
Mr. Kippett, continue.
Thank you.
1 second, please, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Ruling of the chair has been appealed in second. You have to honor a vote without discussion.
Can I ask, what are y'all afraid of here, people in Fire District 22?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor.
Hold on.
Mr. Mayor.
I will get you a
Discussion.
question. I will get
There's
you
no
a question.
discussion.
Okay? We want, folks, please hold your thoughts. If this is the game we want to play, then let's play. All right? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Excuse me. Now we'll have a discussion on it.
No. No? No.
Why?
Appealing the rule of the chair
Okay.
is not discussable.
Okay. We'll have a vote. All in favor of not allowing the people in the unincorporated areas of Fire District 22 to not speak at this town hall meeting, say aye. All in favor of not allowing them to speak, that's what you just put.
I'm in favor of this being a town hall meeting for the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm. I say aye to that.
Well, what you just said was none of the unincorporated areas.
It's only for the city.
We don't represent them.
Okay. It was put on the agenda.
I understand. You did not listen to this. You did not suggest. Council did not.
Keep your word.
Folks, hold up. Just hold your thoughts.
Mr. Mayor.
Can't vote on anything.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Mr. Herron and Ms. Balcom, the ruling of the chair has been appealed. We need to vote yea or nay.
Yay.
Yay.
Yea.
Wait, is this phrase is the way Mayor Short explained it? Because saying that it's for the city isn't mutually exclusive of the fire district. So that's not an adequate vote.
I apologize, but, whenever we discussed it to talk about town hall meeting, we agreed for the citizens to be speaking. We didn't expect to have.
We didn't
that.
specify.
We agreed to a discussion on,
I
excuse me,
understand,
both
but
of you.
we were expecting it to be the citizens to be able to speak to us.
But I'm not going to sit here and argue with both of you. Miss Lisa, did we not in the last council meeting say for a town hall meeting for fire protection, it was not stated city limit or citizens within the city limits only?
That is what I wrote, yes.
What, that it was for city
Fire
limit?
protection generally.
Generally.
But and if you want to be specific, you weren't specific in regards to unincorporated to be able to come up.
Mayor,
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I would suggest, if there is controversy, that you do have a provision at the bottom of your agenda that you can seek attorney advice on anything. If you need to recess into executive session and try to get a hold of the attorney to solve this before it goes any further, you may want to consider that.
Well, here's my question.
Yeah,
Whether you want to say it's
I'm a
vague
member
or
of the
not.
city, can I make my comment?
Hold on just one second. Whether it sounds vague or not, it was over fire protection. Whether you think it's vague or whether it should have been brought down to a finer detail of only the citizens within the city limits, I will allow them to.
could she speak into the mic so we can
Please
hear
speak
her
into the mic.
mumbling up there?
They can't hear you.
It is the responding to fire 22, who's in charge of that? Is it NTSR or is it NCVFD?
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you. Can you speak up, please?
You're gonna have to either speak in your mic or you're gonna have to find somebody to speak up.
I said it is NCVFD. NCVFD is the charge for Fire District 22. Therefore, that's, if they want to have a town hall meeting separately to discuss with that, with the unincorporated, they are free to do that.
All right, here's what's gonna happen. Folks, I apologize. We are gonna recess for a minute into executive session.
Mayor Short.
And the beat goes on, ladies and gentlemen, and the beat goes on.
There will be no votes. That's it. There will be no votes.
Trying to think of who.
So the mayor has called for a special meeting next Wednesday, by the way. Mrs. Balcom has already stated she can't make it. She can't teleconference into it. And the subject of that special meeting is to make decisions based on what we're all discussing here tonight. So I wonder if we're going to see several council members no-show so that they don't have quorum to make a decision next Wednesday. I don't know. I'm pretty sure if Adrian can't make it, suddenly other people aren't going to be able to make it too, even though everyone else up here agreed they could make that. So you heard it here first.
Can't you put a camera on it?
No, the mic does not work that well, and no, I can't put a camera back there to record an executive session.
So ladies and gentlemen, please have your attention for a second. I would like to the unincorporated areas. I have a petition here that I'm willing to present to the county commissioners.
Ladies and gentlemen, please. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
you. Go ahead.
start over again.
Okay, I live out in High Point Branch. I have a petition for an emergency service district that we can present to the county commissioners. That would allow us to set up a 5-member board to oversee fire protection within District 22. Anybody that wishes to sign it, I have them right here.
Now, to be clear, as I understand it, it has to be presented to this council?
Yes,
right?
right. They will have 60 days to either approve it or not. After that, they will have 6 months to stand up their own fire department. But within the unincorporated areas, to go within the
Full
SDH.
service to the whole fire district, right? Number one. Number two, if not, we can get it on the ballot in May and overrule them on this. So we can get it on as a ballot issue in May if we get moving on this in the next month or so, correct? Thank you.
Sorry?
No, whole fire district 22. ESD, the entire fire district. No. Okay, so in the last meeting, the mayor called for a special meeting next Wednesday for them to vote on a merger, yes or no, and to finalize this whole process next Wednesday. Adrian stated via a written note that she couldn't do that week. They talked about it. That's the only day that 90% of the council can get together. They offered her to join by teleconference, and she claimed being home with her children, it will be too loud and distracting having her children there in the background. She can't participate because she's taking care of her children. So she will not be able to make Wednesday, she said. But it looked like everybody else agreed that Wednesday would be fine. So I don't really wonder. If Adrian doesn't make that meeting, I bet we suddenly have other people who can't make the meeting, so we don't have quorum. Right? I'm just saying, it's happened before. And as we can see, they're not above continuing playing politics on this issue. And I think that's what they want, ladies and gentlemen. They want this room to empty out. They want people to get frustrated and go home and not get up here and talk on the record. So, anyone at home, it looks to me like you got plenty of time to drive in if you're capable of it tonight, so you can stand up here and speak and not let this little game work. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching and you can drive in, please consider it. Thank you.
included into the city, to be annexed into the city. That'll solve the problem.
Ask us again after May.
We'll start.
That's what they're doing right now, is they're on the phone with the city attorney.
How you doing?
we went into executive session to speak with the city attorney concerning tonight's town hall meeting. Here's what I'm going to ask of you, okay? The citizens that live inside the city limits speak first. Once all citizens are done, then all the citizens within the unincorporated area or of Fire District 22 will be allowed to speak, and we will sit and listen to you as well. Okay? Now, folks, that clap should be for the council as a whole. That was, and I'll be honest with you, that was not my idea. That was the idea of the council. Okay? That's not to say anything negative either way. But that was their decision, so those claps should go to them because they made that responsible decision. So we are going to start off, Mr. Kippick, you were waiting patiently. Yes, sir. Yes. When you come up to speak, folks, in the fairness of, we've got a lot of people here, and time is of an essence. You have one shot to get up there, not sit down and remember, oh, I got one more thing, and get back up behind somebody else. It's a one-time deal. So please bring up what you need to bring up that time. And it is about fire protection, not about individuals. Okay? No. So go ahead, Mr. Kippitt.
Thank you. Mark Kippett, 31 Fireside. I live in the city. I want to thank the council because I originally was going to make a fairly generic, more of a generic statement of support, but now I just modify that a little. So first I want to publicly thank Chief Simmons, Chief Murphy for their outstanding ability to work together and create a fire department that we can rally around. They're doing what that ordinance says they have to do. For the folks that want to go back to just having the MCBFD, that ordinance has to be revoked. That's what restricts the mayor's actions and restricts the council's actions. Prior council passed that ordinance. Chief Murphy is fulfilling, or Chief Simmons fulfilling a mandate. Chief Murphy is bringing capability that the city needs to operate. As far as this issue, we've been going on too long, way too long. So when I say that, I want to get to motivation. So here I have an email. I'm not going to go into the specifics of it, but it was dated Monday, November 27th, 2017. It's almost a year ago. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, one of our council members, in communication to another council member and the former mayor, said, and I quote, they're discussing creating a contract that was presented to the MCBFD last November that the MCBFD wisely turned down. The intention of that contract was really an unconscionable contract. I'm sure Mr. Herron can explain that, what that means. It's DOD background. He'll explain that that is a contract that one party offers, the other party really can't accept because it puts them in an unfavorable position. Right? Contracts are supposed to be mutually beneficial. So, given that background, since we know they will need to use 2 full-time firefighters to respond to the fire district, they will be in breach of contract after the first dispatch into the fire district. In other words, this contract was being set up specifically so that they could seize the property of the MCBFD, the city. Now, that's not the city government I want. I want a government that's run ethically. Period. Ethically. That's not ethical behavior. And if anybody wants to argue that point with me, I'll be happy to have that argument. But I can't imagine how they would offer a contract to people that have been serving the community for so long, done it professionally, done it well, sacrificed, put their lives on the line, and the answer was, well, we're going to create a contract that we can seize their equipment. And then we wonder why we're at this problem. Now, these two have worked it out. Let's rally behind it. We're at the verge of greatness. We can create something. I'm okay with creating a city fire department. Chief Hood and I were just talking. Chief, is that the appropriate term? Justin Hood and I were just talking about that. We agree. We disagree a little on tactics maybe, but we certainly agree on the big vision and where the city needs to go. So, and no plan's perfect. I've been to war 3 times for this nation at the operational level. So what that means is where we are maneuvering large forces. I've never seen a plan that survived the first contact. We were always having to change it. Even when we had overwhelming force, we had to change it. So that's normal. That's a normal part of execution, is you just have to have a plan that you're able to work together and get through. These 2 men can do it. The firefighters that are in this room that have served this community, my hat's off to them, man. I cannot believe that they have been through the stuff they've been through in the last year. They are my heroes. They are professionals. And I know there's some folks in here that had relied on them for service. Fortunately, I never have. My wife and I never have. They have not had to come to our house, but I'm going to tell you, I'd lay my life on the line with them. So the real issue we come down to 1 October. You got a contract runs out with the MCVFD 1 October, create a fire department. The chief just told you can't do it unless you do the merger. It's pretty straightforward to me. You could force them to try to do it, gets pretty high risk, end up potentially with a break in service, and what happens to the folks in the unincorporated area, because this is an intricate relationship between us and the county. It's the way we work here in Rockwell County. There's no exceptions. Rockwell City of Rockwell Fire Department, Fate DPS, Heath DPS, Royce City Fire Department. They all work together. That's called mutual aid. They come together. If you say we're not going to service the unincorporated areas because we think there's an inequity, I'm not going to argue that point. You can go see the county commissioners and have that discussion. Judge Sweet will happily have that conversation. But at the end of the day, we need to have a fire department on 1 October. They gave you a plan. It's an executable plan. I'd say get behind the plan. And if you can't get behind their plan, I'm asking each member of council, I would love to hear your words on whether you support it or don't support it this today. And if you don't get behind their plan, what's your plan? Thank you.
Thanks.
Go ahead. I'll just sit here.
Troy Wright, 441 Briar Glen. I live in the city. Thank you, Mayor, for finally bringing this to a town hall meeting where the citizens have an opportunity not to just voice their displeasure and sit there and watch you kind of give us the round eyes, but actually have to answer some questions relative to what this has come to. And for council persons Balkan, Heron, and Turnbull, seeing as how you were in part of the city council that initiated this fiasco, my question for either one of you or all 3 of you, what was the urgency of having a city-owned fire department when we had a fully functioning volunteer fire department, which at one time you said the city fire department would be a volunteer fire department? So what was the need? Number 1. If somebody can give me a common sense answer, I'd certainly like to hear it. So either one of you, speak up. It's your opportunity to tell the citizens why it was so damn important to have a city-owned fire department. When you've already funded, you think this is funny?
No, I don't actually.
Well, you sure act like it. So any one of you want to give me an answer? Give the citizens an answer.
Well, I'll speak for myself. At the time when we passed the ordinance, we were unable to
based on what we just heard from Mr. Kipton, you didn't want to service the McLendon-Chisholm Volunteer Fire Department. There was no reason not to. You passed a budget that funded the volunteer fire department for the year. And in fact, you even increased it by $9,000 over what they asked for.
No, sir, we did not pass the budget. We allocated that amount, yes, but we did not have a contract.
If you allocated it, then why didn't you just go ahead and fund it?
It's not the same thing. We had a meeting that was scheduled after the budget season, which was on October 10th.
Why was it so important to have a city-owned fire department when we already had a fully functioning volunteer fire department?
Well, there's two things, Mayor, doing that.
Yes.
First off, in fall of 2017, we had an opportunity to do negotiations. The negotiations fell through. We came with this presentation that happened back in June 2017. And basically, the negotiations failed. They didn't agree to what we were talking about back then. Then the threats, when it came to campaigning and politicizing it, and then we kept on getting threat letters. And so at that point, if you were a person that was wanting to have a contracting service with anybody and they told you how it was going to be, then we had to make a decision because we represent the citizens.
So you were getting threat letters.
Pay up or we don't service you. And we've had video footage of meetings as well. And
Folks in the audience.
They're saying they can't hear.
Oh, okay. Can you pull your mic up or something, because they're saying that yours is real bad.
it's all right.
Pointing at your shoulder now.
So what you're saying then is that there was a contract that was presented to you, but you refused it because it didn't coincide with what you wanted. Is that correct? So according to this email that we just heard this evening, you didn't accept a contract from the McLendon-Chisholm Volunteer Fire Department because it eliminated your position of taking over their equipment.
Well, okay, first off, that email is just one of many emails.
But it's an email that goes directly to your refusal of a contract with McLendon-Chisholm Volunteer Fire Department, of which you could have very easily worked a deal out with them and accepted their contract or put together a contract, because there were people that were working to do that, and there were very viable contracts which were presented to you, and you just continued to refuse them.
We've invested over $700,000 in the assets they have is supposed to be city-owned property. And there was a lot of people that had the impression that was part of the city, and it wasn't. And so there was a lot of intricacies that needed to be taken care of at that time, but it wasn't. And so there's been constant changing of ideas of what they wanted to have in the contract. It seemed like every other week, it seemed. So yes, at some point the city council made the decision that we needed to have two negotiators outside of the mayor and outside of the fire chief at that time, get the personalities out. And then at time, that's whenever there was negotiation at the time between the two parties. Now, we expected the city council wanted to have two negotiators from MCVFD that actually had authority to make decisions, and that did not happen. It would have to go back to the MCVFD membership for discussion. Now, I wasn't part of the negotiation team, and I think it would be fair for Mayor Pro Tem Turnbull to discuss that.
Well, his question was why we didn't have a contract. Why we set up the fire department. And the answer was we were unable to reach a contract.
Now, who breached it?
Nobody breached the contract. The existing contract expired, and we were unable to reach a mutually agreeable contract between council and MCDFD.
reach an agreement. And that to me is pretty sad politics for a small community such as ours. Pardon?
Can you clarify what you mean by design? Like, you think that you didn't want to have?
From the sounds of the email that we heard this evening, yes.
Well, I apologize, that's how you feel, but our.
You don't have to apologize. I mean, it's not your fault, it's not my fault. Nothing to apologize for. You just screwed up, period. You had an opportunity to do something that was very common sense, and you blew it. And I don't know necessarily what your agenda was, why you felt it was so important to have a city-owned fire department when we had a very viable fire department already. And then now you give us options. And these men have worked very diligently, and I've heard you sit there and criticize what these people have been trying to do when you ask them to do it.
Apologize, sir, but we have not offered options. We established MCFR. Okay, that was back in April. So all of that transpired already, and that was in response to, we have to do something. So there wasn't any options of like, okay, well, should we get service from MCVFD? There wasn't anything that
So
transpired.
that was done back in April?
Yes, I did a time.
Okay, so here we are, now we're in August, the end of August, almost the 1st of September, and we still don't have a fire department that you said you started back in April.
Yeah, we started we did the paperwork process, we then did a safer grant, and to think about financially how we can be able to have, if we didn't get volunteers, we could actually hire, part-time or, some sort of staffing at that point if that was needed. So as far as like the timeline, everything is laid out pretty diligently so that you can see that it's not just overnight that we came up with this idea.
Sure doesn't sound like you spent enough time putting it together. It seems to me that the common sense thing would have been to go ahead and work with the volunteer fire department and take the necessary time getting the consultants that you needed, because you sure as heck aren't qualified to put together a fire department. You have a hard time even running a city council meeting. And come up with some kind of a plan that was a viable plan that you could one day have been able to bring to the citizens and say, okay, this is what we've come up with. It isn't, well, we've got 3 options here, or we've got 2 options here. We can do it this way or that way. You could have come to us with a plan that said, this is the plan that we have for the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm going forward for a fire department that's going to give us the services that we need.
Sir, at that time, you were basically told, you don't pay up, then we will not service you. So,
That's not totally true.
yeah, in a nutshell, that was, we had to respond.
I'm sorry, that's not totally
We
true.
saw the letters that came to the city, and we had it, we know what was said. And this is our response. We, as the city council, we have to make those type of decisions for public safety and welfare. I know, I understand where your feelings, and it's an emotional thing, I get it, I really do. But at that time, this is how we had to react to the situation, because like, what if something should happen? We need to be able to consider the safety issue.
So when Mr. Turnbull was at the commissioners meeting and said that we were going to have a fire department by June sometime, that was the plan? I mean, you already had that in place, that was going to work?
Mr. Wright, I'll address that by asking Mr. Simmons to explain the information that he provided to me, which I then relayed to the county commissioner.
In regards to
You were
Standing up the department by June 16th.
Sure. When it was presented to me in the beginning, prior to our initial meeting, Chief Murphy and myself, we had no communications. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be able to get in contact with Chief Jones at the time to hopefully maybe have some dialogue. So at that point, we had nothing. We were in that stall mode. So when I was asked by council we're gonna have to do something. Can you put something together by June 16th? I said, if that's what I've gotta do, that's what I'm gonna have to do. If we can't get any communications with the volunteer fire department to be able to get something going, I'm gonna have to put something together. It's gonna be piecemealed together. It's not gonna be great, but I'll do what I have to do. Whatever council tells me I need to do, I will do it. So that's where that statement from Councilman Turnbull is coming from. At that time, things were completely different than where we are today. So I was being tasked to put something together in 16 days.
And that was because
Crazy.
of the letter.
Crazy.
Did you honestly believe that you could put a fire department today in
Oh, it was going to be
15
piecemeal, sir.
days?
It was going to be piecemeal. It was going to be a tough, impossible task. Thank God that it's still pursued, and we were able to. Chief Murphy walked in and at a council meeting and said, "I'm here. I would like to start talking." That was outstanding, because I knew at that point, all right, I'm not going to have to piecemeal something together that's going to have my name tied to it and take a chance of ruining what little bit reputation that I have.
This city council's done a good job on that one.
So that I hope will answer the question. So yes, at that time, I did say, because we had no options, I was going to have to do something. But things changed in that 16 days prior to Councilmember Turnbull speaking to Commissioners Court.
Going forward then, beyond looking into the third, fourth year, fifth year of this city-owned fire department, I have a feeling that means that you're gonna have to raise city taxes. You know as well as I do that what something costs today is not gonna be the same 4 or 5 years from now. And you're not gonna have the money from the SAFER grant, and so the city then becomes responsible for the fire department. And then you're thinking, or it's been said that when that happens, that the city doesn't have to be responsible for the people that have been hired and are manning the fire department. So you could all of a sudden just say, well, can't afford it, so we'll dismiss half the fire department.
So are we not allowed to go and get more grants?
Didn't say that you wouldn't.
Okay, so just to consider, we are gonna be constantly looking for opportunities all the time.
So you have no intentions at all of raising city taxes in the future?
I have no interest, for me personally, I don't speak for anybody else. I have no interest in raising anybody's taxes. I wanna be able to use the budget that we have.
Doesn't sound too realistic to me. I haven't seen a city government yet that can operate on the same budget that you're talking about today 5 years from now. And especially when you're gonna have a fully funded city-owned fire department. Ain't gonna happen. You know as well as I do. So you're just sitting there blowing smoke at all the rest of us.
What's our property, what is our current, property tax?
I don't know, you tell me.
15 cents. And this-
Pardon?
15 cents.
15 cents.
Yes. And we did not increase it. Now, there will be a public hearing, and of course, if you want to come up and say you want us to increase it, I mean, you'll be one of many to be outspoken to say you want your taxes to be increased.
I didn't say anything about my taxes being
I'm
increased.
just
I don't want it. But you can't sit there and tell me that a fully funded city-owned fire department 5 years from now is not going to require more money from the citizens. You just can't say that. You know darn good and well that you can't fund a city 5 years from now at the same price you're funding it at today. So just be honest and say that that's on the docket in the future, that's out there in order to fund the fire department.
There's another financial options that we have that we never knew until about 6 months ago, and they're called union leases.
Folks, we're talking about County Fire Service today. Sir, I guess the best way to answer what that question was right there, I can tell you today the intent would not be to raise taxes, but I can't promise that because I don't have the crystal ball for 5 years from now. My intent would not be to try to be able to operate under the same budget, but just as you stated, that costs go up, costs can go up, buildings can go down. We don't know. You folks are grown adults, very well-educated individuals. We've all heard the terms the statements throughout the last few years, the real estate bubble's gonna burst at any time. There's a lot of variables that can come into that play. I will tell you from my heart, my intention would not be, but I can't speak for what could go on between now and 5 years from now. My intent is not to, but I don't know.
Well, I
And that's
understand
a fair answer to it.
I understand that.
Yes, sir.
But what I'm getting at is the fact that a fully funded, city-owned fire department beyond 4 years is going to be more expensive to the city, because you don't know that there's grants that you're going to be able to get. So you've got to look at it in terms of what if you don't.
It's not just grants, sir, there's other financial options that the way that I look at it is if you can't afford something, you know, you try to work within your budget, you know? So there are options out there, we just need to make sure that we're doing due diligence of looking into that.
But I will tell you, we do note the fact that you are concerned about there could be rising costs, or there will be rising costs, okay?
I want to make sure that you know that your concern, I mean, I understand that. I don't want to pay more than what I need to pay. I mean, it just, you want to be pay things fairly, you know?
And my only concern is seeing the way this whole thing's gone up to this point. I don't have much confidence in your ability to keep it where it's at. That's enough for me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Stu Mayberry, 21 Fireside Drive. I am a resident of the city of McLendon-Chisholm, but the first thing I want to do is point out the first line on that slide. It says McLendon-Chisholm and the citizens of Fire District 22. So why the heck are we even arguing this? Is this a surprise to you? Did this just come out of nowhere, Chief? This should have been known to you. Fire District 22 includes all of the people that you just disrespected here by saying that, oh, you're second-class citizens, you can go second. That's wrong. And Mayor, God bless you. I appreciate what you and the council are trying to do, but I also know that Colonel Kip, that I've worked with him, and I've known him for nearly 30 years in the military. I've known his experience and then what he did afterwards with as a program manager for a major defense contractor. If there's somebody who knows how to get something done, and he was on the committee with 2 of the city council people, appointees, to work this issue of the fire department. No matter what they came up with, it was voted down. No matter what they came up with, y'all found fault with it. There was no way they were going to win because Steinhagen and you decided that this was personal. And you let your personalities and let your not instincts, I don't know what the hell it was, excuse my language, I don't know what the hell it was, but you let your emotions get in control of you. So I'm not going to take any more time on that, but I just want to let you know that there's nobody who's worked harder for this than that gentleman right there. So Mark, my hat's off to you. I'm just trying to figure out, when we're talking about money here, we're standing up a fire department, the $529,599, does that include the firehouse that you're going to have to build? Anybody?
I apologize, which screen are you looking at, or document that you're looking at?
I'm sorry?
Which document are you looking at, because I'm making sure that he can answer.
I'm looking at this, and then I'm looking at the budget that
Okay.
was given to us last week, and those numbers are from the budget as far as the operational expenses for safety, and I don't have the rights on, but it's too small a print, but it's under the safety, whatever it is. So it was provided by you.
Can you answer that question?
So I'm just trying to figure out, where is the money going to come from? This building costs $1.2 million. What is a fire department going to cost? Because we're damn sure not going to let you build a metal shack out there with a chain link fence around it when we are held to higher standards. you need to be held to higher standards. You need to maintain, I'm proud of this building. I think it set McLendon-Chisholm on the map. If we're gonna do the fire department, let's do it right. But I want you to sit there and tell me where you're gonna get the money that it's gonna take to build a fully functioning firehouse, at least one. You may need two. As far as TxDOT and Highway 205, that's 3 to 5 years down the road. I just looked at the plans. We're talking about 2020 to 2023. That money ain't there yet. You can't depend on it. If you want to stand up the fire department, you gotta be able to put it somewhere, just like your new equipment that you bought. Thank God it's still out in California. Maybe it'll slide off into the ocean or disappear. But, you know, you bought fire equipment, you appointed a chief, you got no fire department. And we're paying for it. So I just want to know, where is the money going to come from to build this fire department, or this building? Taxes. That's exactly, grants ain't gonna pay for it. You're not gonna get that much. So I'm trying to figure out what the estimated tax burden is on the rest of the people out here. Again, civility, I just really appreciate the fact you're trying. But again, I think everybody in the audience will sit here and say, it's not working. We thought it was bad under Mr. Steinhagen, and Mayor Short, this is not a shot at you, but you're a Marine, you can handle it. You know, like the Colonel said, he's been in 3 wars, I've been in 3 wars, I was at the tactical level. That's why I don't pay taxes. I feel bad, because I can stand up here and say, you're probably gonna have to raise taxes. Governor Perry said I didn't have to pay taxes because I'm 100% disabled. It wasn't my idea to become 100% disabled. I would willingly pay, and I will. I will tell you this, I will pay whatever the difference is that anybody out here has to make up in taxes. I will pay that out of my own pocket if I need to make sure this thing works. So I'm just asking you collectively, please get your crap together and work together as a team and leave your personalities out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Gary Nichols, 612 Kentwood. Last time I stood here, I said that I was embarrassed the way this was being run, and it hasn't gotten any better. It's so disappointing to see this group struggle to even have a civil conversation. It's just sad that we can't do better than this. The problem is not that hard. There are some contentious issues buried in the problem, but the problem really isn't that difficult. All we need to do is get the choices out there, discuss it, and make a rational decision. Well, the presentation that we saw tonight didn't have enough meat on it, especially budgetary items, to inform the citizens as to which way they might want to go. We really need to see more detail before we can make a determination. But I agree with the person who earlier said that perhaps the best way to do this now is for the council to come up with a plan based on what they know now, put together a package that you all agree on, and propose it to the citizens, and then ask them for input and massage it again if necessary until it meets everyone's needs. I'm not going to satisfy everyone, but the majority. The problem is just not that great. It's not that hard to do. In conclusion, I would say it's fiscally irresponsible to build a new station before we need it. It's going to be a while before we get any help from the state, if at all. We've already got a building that we can use. There's no reason not to continue using it. We've got an outstanding professional staff that's already working. They're willing to do the merger, and that sounds like a reasonable approach. If there are facets to it that are not clear to everyone, please uncover it and expose it and hash it out. One of the issues that I know is the question of paying benefits, and my suggestion on that is that if you want to build a first-rate department, you're going to need to pay salary and benefits commensurate with the kind of people you want, because the people you want are the ones who are going to stay here and make a career of it if they can, And those are the people who are supporting families and have needs just like everybody else. There are very few of us who work professionally that didn't have a full salary and benefit package. If anybody had tried to take either of those, reduce those or take them away, we would have gone elsewhere. And that's the same problem you're going to face with fire department. Please consider paying what the people are worth. If you want citizen input, you're going to have to come up with a budget that show a budgetary description of what the 2 plans are, 3 plans, however you want to do it. But in the interest of saving time and making this, getting this completed in time for the new fiscal year, I think you're going to have to do it yourselves. And I don't know what kind of restrictions you have on working closed sessions or public sessions, but I urge you to try to come together and stop the squabbling. It's not helpful, it's not productive, and it's still embarrassing. Thank you.
My name is Mike Donegan. I live at 2620 Ridge Lake Lane. I am a citizen of this wonderful city. Before I make my comments, I want to say that I've been sat there where y'all sat at town hall, several town hall meetings, and I know it takes a little bit of fortitude and strength and personal courage to sit and do what you're doing. So I appreciate your vigor. I appreciate what you do. We may not agree on some things or many things, but I do honor your service in what you're doing. I appreciate it very much. And speaking of honor, a couple of personal reflections. I think probably maybe at least half of the people, if not more than half, and I know most of you have served this country in uniform, whether it's in the military or as a first responder, and I bet probably over half of the people in this audience. And I know we all wish that serving and sitting where you are, that you would gain the same type of honor as people do of serving in uniform. And I think that's each and every one of ours personal prayer and goal, is that people that find the opportunity and the responsibility to sit where you're sitting also deem it honorable and serve honorably. And we hope that that's where we get to, that people want to serve on the city council because it is an honor. And I personally am sorry that we're having these difficulties, and I'm sure you are too, because I know none of y'all are going to get much sleep tonight when you get home. So I'd like to make a couple of thoughts. If there's no reason, political reason, that a decision has to be made in terms of the precise inner workings of these 2 options, maybe there's a way to extend what we're doing now, once you decide which option you're going to go, to allow for proper planning and organization of the new fire department, be it option 1 or be it option 2. And certainly I think the merging of the fire departments is the best option. So I don't know if there's a political reason that a decision's got to be made. I'm sure there is, quickly, but once that decision is made, maybe there's an opportunity to allow the volunteer fire department that we have operate under the same type of conditions as we are now, so that we can make some wise decisions. And the other thing that I would really, being involved with city government and being over the last 30 years, every administration is faulted for not having enough communications to its citizens, particularly on important issues. I haven't seen a letter to the citizens on the issues of the fire department. I think the information is put on the website is not sufficient. I just learned that by accepting the SAFER grant, that we are now committed to a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour fire department. Is that correct? We're not?
No, the SAFER grant is, we have agreed to accept the money to hire X amount of
provide
firefighters. It's not necessarily to how many hours or how many days a week that we service as a fire station. It's a grant for the hiring of firefighters.
Okay, but
Mr.
is there,
Connery,
I'm sorry, please.
let,
Yeah, Chief Simmons should
Chief
answer that.
If I get it on, there we go. It is, for the, receiving the SAFER grant does require us to make sure that we have fire protection around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Well, so I'm not sure that if given the choice, every citizen would say that's what we need or that's what we can afford. So I'm just saying, as these issues are heavily, I mean, there's a lot of details and involvement to it. I think the planning for what we're going to do, hopefully is a merger of the two fire departments, that we take our time and really go through the issues and then communicate those issues to the citizens. And I hate to say this, but maybe one thing is a very pointed survey to the citizens, not without any political reference or anything like that, but just a simple survey that says, what type of fire department do you want? You know, and not do it like, I think that we have, some of the surveys have some type of political agenda behind it. I think just in something that citizens can say, yeah, I like this, or no, I don't like this. And finally, I have a recommendation on how we get our civility back in the community. And if you've read the Gospels, you know that Jesus said that the two greatest commandments are that we love God with all of our heart, our soul, and strength, and that we love our neighbors ourselves. And what do we do when there's a personal or perceived conflict between loving our God and trying to love our neighbor? Well, I think, number one, we've got to let God tell us, you know, point our finger towards God. He's our priority. But then remember that we ought to be loving each other as much as we love ourselves. Thank you.
Good evening, Justin Hood, 287 Pheasant Hill. I've been with Dallas Fire Rescue for 16 years. I currently serve as the section chief of our special operations team. And I say that only just to bring relevance to, as far as staffing, budget, things that I've had to deal with, and just trying to look at it through some of those lenses as well. I do have a question about the SAFER grant. Does the SAFER grant, does it restrict you to staffing, personnel? Like it has to be spent on a salary of some kind? Is that the only way you can spend that money?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Benefits on this particular grant.
Okay. And so that was my next question. So what is included? So when you say we're going to use these, the SAFER grant for positions and benefits, what's the long version of what those benefits exactly are?
The benefits would include, obviously, medical, dental, TMRS, what am I missing? Workman's comp.
So TMRS is a pension?
Yes, sir, pension, sorry, the retirement, workers' comp liability. I think that's most the benefits that we would offer to an employee.
Excuse me, Lisa, exactly what items can we submit under the SAFER grants? Because medical is not one of them, correct?
No, you can submit for any benefits. When we submitted the grant, we didn't ask enough for a full benefits package. I put in $6,000 per firefighter for benefits because I thought we were hiring part-time.
Right.
So we put in for workman's comp and liability and just the required insurances, not medical and not dental. Now, there probably will be a little bit left that could be applied to other benefits such as TMRS or medical, but it won't be enough to cover all of those benefits. The city would have to we'll have to assume some of the costs for the remainder of the benefits that are not covered under the grant.
Okay, I misunderstood what you said to me before, because you haven't applied for the benefit portion of it. I knew the taxes, the retirement, those were included, but I thought that the medical, since we have them, would be what would be over and above. So I'm glad I asked the question because I misunderstood what you told me before.
I'm sorry, maybe it'll help. So we put in for 6 positions, either full-time positions or full-time equivalent positions, it doesn't matter, and benefits for each one. So we put in assumed a salary of $50,000 for an entry-level firefighter position and $6,000 for benefits for each of those positions. So that's the max that we can do. Anything over and above that, we can certainly do, but we'd have to fund.
All right.
Correct.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. So I think what you're obviously hearing from a lot of citizens, and probably from me too, is one thing I was confused about is when the talk started to come out of the city is going to take over the fire department, or we're merging into towards under the city. I've always been on record saying that I support that, but under a mostly volunteer fire department, from the standpoint of the size of our city, the number of runs, and the high. Well, I think the model that the MC, the previous one, the volunteer part, was using, where you had some part-time people staffing the engines. There was nothing wrong with that model per se. I do think, Troy, I do think that the reason for some of the, hey, let's move it under the city, was that even the volunteer fire department was growing, or wanting to grow, and wanting maybe more equipment, maybe more benefits, maybe more staffing, maybe that was growing as well, so that budget was growing. And so my personal opinion was, well, if that's gonna grow, then I think bringing it to where we have it under the city, where the citizens are kind of making those decisions within the city, would be a better long-term solution versus having to renegotiate a contract with a private, or someone said outside the city, over and over and over and over again as those costs kept going up. And eventually, if we were going to do this, we're going to be at this point. Okay, one's going aside and we're coming into this. This was coming eventually if we were ever going to do this. And so it's just a difference in opinion on whether that was the right thing to do or not. But I've never thought that a fully, I've heard the term, fully functioning, fully funded fire department, we cannot afford that. And I think everybody knows that, and the only issue I have is when I deal with grants and things like that at work, I have seen a lot of great ideas come from grants and suffer dying under grants too when they dry out. And that's the concern I have as a firefighter, as any other firefighters that would come in, would be, hey, we hired Joe, Ron, Tina, and Stan, and then 4 years later, when they're rolling, they've got some seniority and probably deserve a little bump in benefits and things like that, is, well, we can't even afford to keep you anymore. Like, so now we got to go tell them. Now we're right back in this room with, well, are you going to tell these guys with 3 kids that they don't have a job anymore? And then, so here we are as taxpayers saying, okay, well, I guess we're going to fund this fire department that we can't afford, that we've been saying we can't afford. So I'll wrap all that up into saying that we don't know what the 3-year, 5-year, 7-year plan is as far as where the city's going, or what the fire department wants to look like. And so I'm not against a merger at all in order to create fire service for the people. But if that merger is like, okay, we're going to get 6 positions and have all these benefits, and we don't have a sustainability plan, it comes. I have done this before, and I've seen it done before. Like you'd rather not. I'm just telling you. Sometimes you may not want the grant if you can't sustain. If it's going to cause such pain in the future, if that grant says you can only spend it on this, and you have no idea of telling our firefighters whether you can fund them in the future. So that's just something to think about. It's something for all of us to think about, because I'm telling you, when you have a staff and an engine and a house, well, the next thing is, hey, look, firefighters, we're gonna fight for firefighters. We're gonna fight for their benefits. We're gonna fight for more capabilities. We're gonna fight for more safety. We're gonna want more equipment. We're gonna want a ladder truck. We're gonna want all that type of stuff. And you're gonna staff a ladder truck, that's a minimum of 4 people more right there. You know all these things. It's just, these are the McLendon-Chisholm is this big. I think and it's great, but we're small and we can operate under a mostly volunteer fire department with good professionals that you hire part-time and you can put them in that staff. And we can do it under the city. There's no problem with that particular model. And then the other area that I guess we need a little bit more information on would be it's very vague to say, well, we're gonna have fundraisers because if the department grows and their run volume goes up in the unincorporated area, well, somebody's gonna fund that. And there's not a lot being talked about as far as a plan for that, I guess, in the future. And look, I'm all about it. Everybody have fire service. Let's do it. Let's jump in. You have a fire, let's put it out. I'm not, hey, put them out unless they do this, but realistically, it has to be funded. And as it grows, it has to be funded. And so I was in support of being under the city, but I was not in support of anything being fully funded and all that. And that's where some of the things that's now starting to come out. I highly recommend against it if we don't have the support or the sustainability plan, because those are people that we're going to put in that fire station. And I mean, we're talking, right? We're talking let's share equipment, let's share the building, let's figure it out. But to jump this through the roof overnight is not a good idea. And I think that's all I have. We're all trying to find this balance between service and cost, responsibility, stewardship. We're trying to find that balance, and it seems like it's either this or it's that. And I think a recruitment effort would be a high recommendation on my part. I'll jump in. I'll be on a committee. I'll help in any way I can find that balance and offer anything that I have to try to figure out what's the best way to get good service to the people without breaking the bank. But I've said for a long time that if the plan is to fully fund this thing and just run with it, it's not going to work. It's going to cause a lot of pain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hood?
Mr. Edge, hold on just 1 second.
I would like to address a couple of your comments, but first I want Lisa to back me up. What's our total cost over the 3 years? It's $84.84, and how much is the last year? I'm guessing.
Hang on a second.
That's close enough.
Our share would be $386,400.
Okay, that's what it's gonna cost us over 3 years. I fully understand what you're saying about going forward, but to pay the same amount that was asked in the 2018 budget for personnel, that was $199,000 a year. So we would have been at about $597,000 were we to continue paying MCFD for 4 people 12 hours a day versus what the city will lay out in the next 3 years. So I'm not making it up.
Come on, it's gotta be somebody at the podium.
Well, let's be honest, let's have honest discussion if we're gonna do that. It's just making numbers up now.
We gotta let them talk, we can't have talk from the audience.
Well, say that.
Actually, the number of 199,000 for 4 firefighters at MCDFD is a valid number. That was the number that was proposed in the 2018 budget submission for the 2017-2018 year. Because it was $49,900 some dollars per person for 4 people.
Gentlemen,
So-
we're getting out of order.
Go ahead.
Justin Hood's up there talking, and Mr. Turnbull is responding to him. We
So-
can't have outbursts.
My point is, what we would have spent to fund the MCBFD for personnel, for less personnel, is more, almost a little over $200,000 more than what it will cost us for this service. For myself, I would have never have suggested 2 people 24/7 in the city if the city was paying for it. I don't know of anybody on here, on the council, that would have ever suggested that we do that. The money's there. Whether it is a good thing or bad thing that we take it, if we take it with the knowledge that we may not sustain it at the end of the 3 years, okay. But if it's cheaper than sticking with what we had, is there, where's the problem?
Yes, sir. So I guess a question I have about the grant as well. Could you use that money to fund the part-time positions or to staff them in 12-hour shifts, or even if it's around the clock, I'm staffing in 12-hour shifts? Does it keep you, do you have to be a full-time employee with all the benefits, or can you use the money towards a salary to get people to staff the station during that time?
We have full-time or full-time equivalent. So if we wanted to do 6 full-time firefighters, we could. If we wanted to do 12 half-time firefighters, we could. If we wanted to do 3 full-time and then the remainder, some sort of a combination of hours, but part-time hours, we could do that.
Okay.
But totally, it has to be 2 people on duty 24 hours a day. Now, however we fill that is up to us.
Sure. And so my suggestion there would just be to, utilize that, staff it, but don't put yourself in a situation where you put all the money into one basket, that if you can't afford all of that going forward, then you're cut off. Does that make sense? So if you've got, instead of these are all gonna be full-time positions, and believe me, I'm as pro firefighters I get, man, hire them all, I get it, but we can't afford that. Instead of having all of it towards full-time positions, if you had a hybrid of that or whatever, to where if we get in the future, say, man, we can't sustain that particular number with the amount that it's gone up in that particular time, but we can afford half of that, and we can still staff the station, so we're not back in this room doing the same thing 4 years from now. That's what I'm saying, as far as let's get people that have done this before, and let's talk about the best way to maybe utilize that grant, so you don't just put all your eggs in one basket and just gamble, basically. I'm all in on getting it started and all that. But there's a way that we can take care of the firefighters and take care of the citizens. But people have to be in the same room that can speak on behalf of the citizens to find that balance of where it is, so it doesn't tip over later on. Is that?
Yes, sir. I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
So let's figure it out.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. All right, Mr. Edgy, I apologize again.
No worries. No worries.
It's on.
Lance AG, 1509 Via Toscana. I think most people know my opinion on fire services, but I do want to, so the citizens can understand, because ultimately this is a city of citizens, and what the majority of the people want is what the majority of the people should get. So the MCPFD was voted on an approved budget for $330,000 for the 2017-2018 fiscal year, if that's correct? What was that amount then?
We didn't approve for the NCDOT to receive that number budget, we just approved the budget last year.
So you approved the budget that was presented for $330,000. And the line item in the budget says $330,000 for fire services, correct?
He wasn't here.
safer grants.
It's just a line item. We did not agree that we were gonna give NCDFD that money.
So where did you come up with $330,000 to allocate towards fire services?
There was a presentation at that time, and we knew, we even noted it in, whenever we passed the budget, that we needed to have that discussion and negotiation of contract discussion, because we were interviewing contractors, and it was gonna be on October 10th. It was
So-
after we approved the budget.
So you approved the budget, and in that budget, $330,000 for fire services. Does anyone? This is a town hall meeting, I'm trying to interact with each of you.
We weren't on the council.
You weren't, but you were on the fire department, so the budget was approved for $330, right?
The number came from the $329,000 budget that was submitted by the MCVFD, yes,
Okay.
the proposal.
So so we could run a fire department on $330,000, which the council approved with some of the gentlemen that are in here. The merger, from the numbers that I understand, is $604,000.
Is that a question?
Yes, it's a question. Okay, so I'm just not trying to, yeah, I guess I could double the numbers myself, but I'm wanting a clarification. A stand-up fire department with a fire station is $1 million? Okay, so.
Included all that in there.
So we don't know what a stand-up fire department can cost.
When you talk about a station that goes under the capital expenditures, it can be spent a little different, so it depends on what you're asking. The city's not gonna spend all that money up front to
No,
build a fire station. It would be
but-
obviously drawn out over 10 years, 15 years, whatever it may be.
Sure. You know, we understand the one amount, but to do that, that total would be $1 million.
If that's the numbers,
Oh, I'm asking because there should be, based off what we're being told, there should be some idea of what it costs to build a fire station at this point in time. What does that cost?
current cost about $500,000 to $600,000.
Is that just for the building, or does that include all the finishings,
That's everything.
everything?
Yes, sir.
500. So we're
500 to 600,000.
500 or 600?
Yes, sir.
And then, so 600 plus another 600,000 is how much? $1.2 million. Okay.
Does that get the equipment?
Well,
Again, it's not something the city would spend money all up front. It is something that would be spent out and looked at if the city was to build a fire station.
so the cost would be $1 million, whether you want to spread it out over 1 year or you want to spread it out over 10 or 15, correct?
Sure.
Okay.
So there's about spread it out over 4 years, 5 years.
So what is the staffing cost for the MCVFD, or the merger annually? Well, what is the cost if we did a merger to staff the joint fire department?
Isn't it right there?
Just the safer grant.
Just 6 people.
Current budget that was approved by council, so Jeff, before Mr. Reed.
Yeah, what is that annual number just for the staffing portion of the merger? I hate to ask all these questions, but it really wasn't presented tonight, so
Yeah, there was no money.
I'm a numbers
It was,
guy.
sorry, but it was presented in previous council meetings.
That's-
It wasn't, I'm trying to keep it short.
No worries, I get that, that's why
Down to the citizens.
I just think the citizens need to.
So. So without the safer grant money calculated in on the staffing,
507,000?
507, and that includes the 4 positions, part-time shifts, at $18 an hour, covering 24 hours a day, volunteer call stipend, based on obviously the numbers that you see, $18, $15, and $12 an hour, volunteer workman's comp, and of course, my salary and benefits.
Okay. So let's think about this, so 507 for staff. That doesn't include any other fuel costs or insurances or anything like that. So we get that for $507,440-something. We could have a fully funded MCVFD for $330,000.
Thank you.
It's a town hall meeting.
Do you have a question? I mean, what?
Yeah, can someone explain to me why we want to spend $200,000 more on the fire department when we have 2 stations, 4 trucks, great men and women who volunteer to serve our city, mostly who live in the unincorporated area. I think only 2 live in actual city limits. Chief Murphy and I guess Kenny still lives here, I don't know. But. So why are we spending this much money on the fire department when the original argument was that it's too much money? So we present a proposal. Mr. Trumbull was involved in all that stuff for $33,000 to the MCVFD with penalties of $92,000. But yet we're at $507,000. We presented, the MCVFD offered to give the city everything for free with a transitional period, no cost. But yet today, no one's asked this question. The merger is $507,000 just in staffing, when you have a fully funded fire department for $330,000. Do you guys not see the $200,000 differential? Can someone explain to me why that is any better than what we currently have today? And that's a question.
He should have signed call. Thank you.
I mean, one thing, just to point out the obvious, takes this from 2 people, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, to 2 people, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, so I'm not interrupting your thought process, but I'll use their arguments. We don't need that because we don't have the call volume in the city.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, he's still.
That's what Balcom and Aaron and Turnbull said.
Right.
They've said it for over a year now.
Yeah. And
The other guys aren't here to just sit in front of me and to defend themselves, so I'm not going to throw them under the bus. But and I'm not attacking you, but that's the argument that they've made. So I'm going to use their argument towards your point. We don't have the call volume in the city. The unincorporated has all that. So why are we spending all this money? All the calls are taking place in the unincorporated area. So I'm trying to figure out, using your own argument, why we're spending another $200,000.
Mr. Simmons?
Sir.
Were you asked by the council to put together a budget that included 24/7 coverage?
To have coverage, yes.
That's not the question. Were you asked to put together a budget with 24/7 coverage?
We've had several different discussions over the last few months, and when it came down to deciding what was going to be best to make sure that we have the coverage needed, because volunteering is difficult to keep up, part-time people are difficult to keep up. The decision was to have the people full-time, at least the minimum 4 there, to have the full-time coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, A, B, and C shift.
Once again, sir, were you asked by the council to put that together?
I was asked by council to put a budget together for coverage.
Yes, but
Yes.
were you asked to put that coverage?
Not a particular, no hours, no particular hours were stated.
Okay, thank you. That answers your question.
Yeah. So no, we don't need what we currently all agree is full coverage. So why do we want to spend $200,000 more?
brought to us, okay, the cost ended up, let's see, 2017 was 388,150 plus the 67.5.
Sorry to interrupt you, but what is this for?
I'm just saying, this is how we ended up this direction, okay?
Well,
We had no assets at that time with MCVFD.
but you didn't have to approve $380,000, did you?
We needed to have a negotiation conversation, but
But
that,
you did approve $330,000.
I think that I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I'm not looking at 2018, 19, right, or 2020 down the road, because you don't have to approve. If MCVFD said, hey, we need $1 million, you don't have to give them $1 million.
That's right, we don't have to.
Okay,
do $1
so
million.
I'll
So
stop right
even,
there. So
we
the
agreed to
380
have,
doesn't exist.
we budgeted an amount, okay? In expectation that we were gonna have a negotiation on October 10th, after the budget.
Where was the negotiation stated? What record can I find that in? That you said that once you approved that budget, you would negotiate with the fire department?
When we approved the budget.
When you approved the budget.
Yes, it's in there, we talked about,
Where?
it is noted in there.
Where?
At the meeting that
You're
we
telling me
approved the
somewhere,
budget.
so please tell me where it is.
I will have to go look it up and I will find it for you.
Okay.
But I will have the city secretary email that to you.
Yes. Not to not working on property. You have that as well, don't you? Yeah, you do, it's a public record. So we've got a situation here. We have a great fire department that's $330,000. You guys are wanting to spend $507 just to staff it at the same levels that we have today. You're not get, so for $507,000, Jim, Aaron, can you provide fire service better than the MCVFD? No, I've asked Jim Herron that.
But, Mr. Agee, I'm the moderator of this, okay? It's not a personal attack.
It's not a personal attack. I'm asking him.
If you interrupt me one more time, I'm gonna tell you you're out of order, okay?
Okay, I'll share it.
I have listened to everybody here and given them the opportunity to talk without interruption. If you can't give us the same respect in return, then I'm gonna ask you to stop, okay? I don't want them interrupting you. You don't interrupt them. You don't interrupt me, okay? You're starting to get off track. You can ask a specific question, but you get a little accusatory. You need to settle down a little bit. You made a cheap shot just a minute ago about email addresses. That needs to be, excuse me, that needs to be left out of it. This is about fire service. I understood what your statement was. That's your first warning. Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Herron, again, I'll rephrase the question. For $507,000, are we going to be provide greater services and protection to our city than what we're currently being provided? Knowing that you said that we shouldn't be spending any more money on the fire department.
I've always advocated that we should have a all-volunteer force. I've never said anything other than that. Now, as far as this budget that you're talking about, that budget isn't approved. So that hasn't, so you're talking, you said you didn't want to talk about fictitious future things. That budget hasn't been approved by the city council. So that doesn't really exist. So you're bringing up something there. But as far as it goes, I, the same as Chief Hood, believe that we don't need to have full-time paid fire department. I've said that from the very beginning.
I wanted you to be able to record and say that because I think you're agreeing that $507,000 is excessive based off of your stance, correct?
I agree.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I'm not trying to put you in the spot, but based off what was said. So, Mr. Turnbull, you wanted an all-volunteer fire department, so are you in support of $507,000? You can yes or no if you want.
No, I'm not in favor of $507,000 because that budget that is up there, as was stated before, was not what was asked. So, no, I would not support that budget.
So, a follow-up question, knowing that you're not in favor of $507,000, are you in favor of keeping the MCVFD for $330,000?
No, and the reason that I have to say no is because that includes money that they use for capital expenditures, and if the city is going to make that investment, it should be in their own equipment, not in a private company's business.
So, with that stated, what do you think is a fair budget number for a fire department?
That would depend on what type of service we decide to have.
What do you see as service that we need for our city?
I personally, as I've said before, I think an all-volunteer department would be fine, but that does not appear to be what the majority of the citizens want.
Have you voted in favor of these resolutions?
For starting our own department?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, so you can start a fire department, an all-volunteer fire department, for how much money?
I don't think Chief Simmons has ever provided that information.
Well, so I'm asking you because you're the elected official. He's under your direction.
Yes, sir, but he's the one who would provide this council with information.
Okay, but you've driven this, and you were doing this before he was hired by you as the expert for fire services. So what can the city, what is the volunteer cost for starting a city fire department that you foresee for our city?
For all volunteer?
For whatever you see, I'm asking you.
And are you asking for personnel only, or are you talking about total operational costs?
You gotta have a fire department, so you have to have personnel, and you have to have trucks. You have to have a chief. So what do you see that cost for a guy that wants an all-volunteer fire department?
Per year.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it per year, we can cut it in half if you want to do it for 2 years, it doesn't matter. If you want to tell me $1 million, but that's for 2 years, I can say, okay, that's $500,000 for a year.
No.
Okay, so what is your cost that
For
you feel?
per year, buying the very equipment that we bought, all volunteer, with including the startup for bunker gear, et cetera, first year would probably run about $250,000. After that, it would probably be half that.
So you could run a fire department on half of $250,000 and provide the services that we have today by the MCV.
That's not what you asked.
But I'm asking you now, based off your answer.
The services that we have now are not all volunteer. So no, that.
But I know, I understand, but I'm asking you, can you provide that based off of your scenario and the way that you want a fire department? Can you provide our city the same level of service under the directive of the fire department that you want to put up on the streets? This volunteer fire department?
Obviously, the answer is no, sir, because you're comparing a volunteer fire department to a paid department.
Okay, so what you're saying is, your scenario, we can't get the same level of service that we have today. But under this level of service here, we're not getting anything more than what those guys are providing today. So Mr. Herman, I have a question for you. You've served our NCVFD for some time now. The NCVFD can serve the unincorporated area in the city for $330,000, is that not correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So, do we need $500,000 just for the staffing, considering that you were part of the MCVFD that told the city that we could run it for $330,000?
Okay, so, you know, I listen to a lot of stuff, so let me answer your question.
Yes, sir.
Because, you know, we have to understand that a lot of the numbers and opinions that have been put out here aren't necessarily based, some of them are based upon individual perceptions as opposed to real facts. I was on that fire department. I submitted that budget. I submitted the 6-year plan. And I'll tell you that 6-year plan that the MCVFD submitted here said that by 2020, it would cost $380,000. It wasn't outlandish, okay? So the reality of it is, okay, and first and foremost, I need Chief Simmons to understand that I think you've done a marvelous job. Okay? I want you to know that up front. A large part of the cost here, as far as I'm concerned, is wasteful money. I believe we've hired a $90,000 fire chief, and he's proved his worth, okay? But I thought we hired him a little early. I think we bought equipment that we now have $59,000, $60,000, $58,000 a year that we have to pay for the next 3 or 4 years. That we would not have had to buy. That's part of why this budget is higher. Now, I will tell you that I did not ever include benefits into that projection in the 6-year plan. I do think benefits are an important piece of the puzzle for our firefighters, for the retention of firefighters. We have to remember that most of these guys are young people who are starting careers and starting families, and they need health insurance, they need medical insurance. They're not invincible. I know they think they are, but they're not. So let me finish my point here. So the reality of it is, while that may not have been total, yes, I think that there's a lot of stuff that's going on concerning standing up a city-owned department that, quite honestly, my word would be ludicrous. Okay? I think putting a tent out here to house fire trucks is ludicrous. I think building a fire station out here that has to run through a school district is ludicrous because you can't do it by law. Okay? There's a lot of stuff here that I think has been twisted and that the citizens' input has not been listened to. I do think you're on point. I believe that the reason that the number is what it is because the SAFER grants were put into it. So the reality of it is the only reason those numbers are even close is because, you know, there's $280,000 to $300,000 worth of SAFER grant money pulled out every year. So that's the only reason the numbers even look close. Okay, so when you say about the number that's in the budget for this year and compared to the MCBFD number, no, they're not even close because of the offset, because the MCBFD doesn't have the SAFER grants. I can rant for a long time because I am the money guy, or I was the money guy for MCBFD. And I can tell you that I met with Chief Simmons while I was running for office, before I was elected. I met with him after I was elected, and we discussed this. And he said that he thought that the MCBFD ran the tightest and cleanest ship that he'd seen. Financially, it was extremely streamlined. So, you want my opinion, I think MCBFD is by far a top-notch department that can service the city for a long time. I understand the city's need to want to own assets. Okay? I disagree 100% that the city owns or has any claim on any of those assets. Because one of the things that a nonprofit does is they submit a bid to do work. It's a cost of service. Every person that runs a business has a cost of replenishing their assets built into the number that they charge people. I don't care if it's the guy that's doing lawnmowers, I don't care if it's your septic system guy, I don't care who it is. They had that built in. The reason it was so meticulously identified on those bids was because we were trying to be 100% transparent. And I know I'm rambling now, okay? But, you know, I sit up here and I listen to people say things that I totally disagree with. It's their personal viewpoint. I don't believe it's fact. I do not think that MCBFD ever held a gun to this council's head and said they wouldn't do anything. One more point, please, sir. I also believe that MCBFD showed their willingness to support this community by running calls for 5.5 months uncompensated. And with that, I'll shut up. Thank you.
Page's question about what the cost should be for a fire department for the city. So, Ms. Lacy, could you put my laptop up on the screen? It's on there. We'll discuss it later. All you guys have to go to the center one, to go to, look, make it big again, on the right-hand side where the ellipse is at, and just select mine and then put it in the center.
Okay, say again?
Okay. Hit the middle button. The number one up there, select mine.
Says Jay Heron on the far right, the black box, right above Stephanie.
I'm not seeing that screen, is the problem.
You're not seeing the screen?
I mean, I see it up there, but I don't see it here.
Windows key, choose duplicate.
Would you like to come try?
While they do that, Mr. Wood, I'll move on to you. You had firefighter experience. We talked on a couple of occasions. You seem well-read, you seem intelligent. Is the NCBFD the best solution for our city at this current time? And the reason why I ask this is, in the presentation that was up there, well, this isn't specifically to the fire department, but I think it does overall, the tech stuff. I think it was mentioned 2020 maybe. You know, that's gonna change the direction of the city.
Should we stay the status quo with the MCBFD and keep it funded at the level that it's currently at, instead of going in and creating something where our entire community is going to change with tech stuff? We don't know the direction the traffic's gonna flow. We don't know how many people are gonna move in. We don't know if people are gonna move out because of the congestion and the traffic flow in here and trying to get in and out to the interstates. Not to mention how that affects safety, but would it be wise to keep the MCBFD at the current level that it is? Or should we go down this road of doubling and tripling and quadrupling the cost of fire services to our community, where literally in 2 to 3 years, we don't know where we're going to be?
Well, first address, yeah, obviously we don't know where we're gonna be. The hope, of course, is that tax revenue will increase, that kind of thing, but it's not really something we're building into any of this right now.
You're thinking commercial and some things.
Yeah, perhaps. So a few points that hopefully will address your question.
Sure.
Personally, I've never seen any city transition from a volunteer department to a city-run paid department and end up worse off. I mean, if you look across the trend in fire service right now, it is getting away from a lot of volunteer departments, because even in this town to go all volunteer, not as easy as you think. Try actually getting people to show.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you see, based off what you just said, the trend, you said you see that doesn't necessarily go bad, but what is that transition period? Is it 2 months, 6 months, or is this over 24 or 36 months that you have this transition period?
I'm not sure I have the insight to answer that. I'm not sure if you can understand what.
And the reason why I ask is based on your point. You said that you see that goes that way. And those fire departments that you've seen do that, was that hey, on June 15, County Commissioner, we can have a stand-up fire department?
With 2 paid firefighters per shift is not extravagant. You know, because one by himself, like we said before, one is none, because you can't really do anything by yourself. And as you and I have talked about, as a firefighter advocate, I do like the notion of benefits and a reasonable paycheck. Again, this isn't the $50,000 that's budgeted. It's not that competitive. It's not bad, but it's not. Well, I'll say it's actually respectable. But the benefits, beyond needing to go to the doctor or the dentist, if they get hurt on the job, disabled, anything like that, having some kind of insurance obviously is a benefit. I don't think any family should have to go bankrupt and be destitute for the rest of their lives because they were serving in a volunteer capacity.
Sure.
Lots of people do it. I mean, I volunteered for years myself. So, quite frankly, I like the idea of paying firefighters and supporting them with benefits. The transition time, I don't know of a way to really do it much slower than having, as one of the options, one paid guy, paid firefighter, supported by part-time, and subsequently by volunteers as well.
Okay.
I know the department I'm working for, it wasn't all that long ago, they were volunteer. Then they were part-time paid, and then they go, full-time with the ambulance and everything else. So there is a growth as the city grows.
So, looking at what you're talking about, benefits in particular, or the people that have fire experience, I guess he's already gone, Mr. Hood, but could we not provide, instead of doing this whole startup and this whole merger thing that's costing so much money, could we not apply a little bit of money, maybe, I don't know,
Oh, you're right, yeah.
just a little bit of money, so that these guys could provide some type of benefit?
That could be an option.
Okay.
I mean, the ordinance, the way it's written right now, has a city fire department.
Yeah.
No. That's out there. That's something that would take action to be able to get around.
Okay.
And I don't see that happening.
So, I guess, to round this out, there isn't a cheaper, the cheapest solution is the MCBFD.
Correct.
And not knowing the direction our city's gonna go with 205 expansion, placement of a fire station, there's already been talk of TxDOT helping with that cost. So, is it wise, and anyone can say this, is it wise to jump off a cliff, so to speak, and go all in when we don't know what we don't know? But we know what we do have. And that, it covers that, and Chief Jones spoke back in October, it wasn't in October, it was a year ago, so it would have been June or July of 2017, that even if we added 1,000 rooftops, the MCBFT could operate at the level that it was currently at. Because again, the call volume doesn't necessarily increase even though you've added 2,000 additional people if you're assuming 2 people per home. So I just don't see where the need to start a fire department, where that comes from. So I guess, to give my opinion, many people know that, so other people can speak and the county people won't be here till 3 o'clock in the morning, is I support an ESD. The ESD brings in the unincorporated area and all of Fire District 22. But it levels the taxation that the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm burden, which was the original argument over a year ago, that has taken us down the road, that we were paying too much, now we want to start a fire department. So, with that said, why do we need to go down the road to spend money when we have what everyone wanted in their opinion was the MCBFD right down the road? I think the citizens want the MCBFD. I think everyone would like to see them funded and protected. In the future, after 205 comes in, we can look at that, but it also gives us time as a community to stop and to have a discussion and to say, what do we want a fire station to look like? What do we want our city to look like as a whole? You mentioned commercial, commercial helps fund fire departments. If we start this today and someone comes into town and wants to put a commercial building in, will we have that ability to protect it? Well, it has to be planned. What we're doing today is not planning. You don't start. Business mergers many times do take multiple years to finalize. I work on projects that take 3-4 years. You just don't start something that deals with people's public safety. So I think it would be wise to fund the MCBFD this year. We can then look down the road at a merger, or maybe even a city-owned fire department at some point in time. But there are people that live check to check in our community. And anytime they get hit with something,
on their escrow, it raises their house payments go up. The ISO ratings, all of these things, they add up and it affects people and their pocketbook, especially the young families that live here that live check to check. So I would implore you to consider funding the MCVFD, looking at a transitional period if that's what you want to do, or looking at getting an ESD in place that lowers the cost and the taxable rates to the city, and then you could actually do a tax rollback. Because if you're bringing in additional revenue, not even from commercial, but you could do that. So that's all I got to say. It's just something to think about. It's, you know, I think it's wise and smart. There's no reason to change what was working and was working really good, because no one's yet today has told me that anything is better than MCVFD. And it's $200,000 to almost $800,000 cheaper to operate MCVFD, as Chief Jones presented so well back in October, as he presented back in June and July of 2017. So, you know, keep that in mind. Save the taxpayers' money. Do yourself some political repair and stick with the MCVFT. Mr. Turnbull has said that it's the cheapest solution. Everyone here has said that this is the cheapest and best solution. Not one person has said that they can start a fire department and do anything any better than these guys. So, thank you. I apologize for everyone for my time, but thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, can you give Councilman just 1 second, and then we'll listen to you, so that he can say something real quick?
That's fine.
And then you will have all the time you want.
Oh, I don't have a question.
Oh, go ahead, let her do, and then, go ahead.
I just want to know where the money is coming from to pay for this new building. Nobody's said anything about the building. They talk about the people, talk about the equipment, but nobody has asked or answered where the money is coming from for the building. Because it's $500,000. What's that going to build?
I understand. We were talking about that earlier. I was talking about muni leases, and
I can't hear you.
we were talking about muni leases, M-U-N-I-L-E-A-S-E-S. And that's another financial option. I wasn't even aware of it until.
So you're going to get a loan for it, is what you're going to do?
Yes. It's a lot.
It is a type of loan, and it's within small payments over a period of years, and that will be able to give us that option as a boardable option. Instead of getting like a, you know, let's say for instance, how the bond thing happened.
So it's like the house loan.
It's a lot. It's a big debt. It's a big debt.
Yeah, another debt the city has to pay.
Well, hold on. It's not, when you say debt, the thing, the difference is that we actually are gonna own this asset.
Oh, I know you will, yeah.
But it's not gonna be a crazy monstrosity figure. It's gonna be meeting our actual needs for taxes.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Herring, go ahead.
And unfortunately, Chief Murphy left. I wanted to thank him. I had asked him if he would give me the call volume numbers from 2013 till now, and he was able to get those. The previous chief wasn't able to accomplish that. And I also asked him if he could give me the rooftop counts for inside the city and those outside the city. So let's talk about this real quickly, because the previous gentleman asked a question about how much it costs to do the fire services for this city. So let's address it in the way the county today gives us $67,500 to cover Fire District 22. The city of McLendon-Chisholm makes up approximately 1/3 of Fire District 22. So if you take a look at, this is the budget they gave to us in 2017. They asked for $329,550. Plus, on top of that, they got the $67,500 from the county. So a total of $387,000 to cover Fire District 22. But the people of McLendon-Chisholm were paying $329,550 of that. And the firemen that we were paying for, they were going out into the unincorporated areas on the amount of money that we were paying. So if you look at it from the perspective, looking at the numbers that Chief Murphy gave me, based on his numbers, I went back and I just looked at the last 18 months, well actually the last 31 months. Last 31 months, there were roughly 17 calls. During that time, 4 of them I just couldn't account for because they don't have enough information where that was actually located at. But there were 400 in the city, 412 outside the city. So kind of see a pattern here. They're responding to more outside calls outside the city than they are inside the city in the last 31 months. That's from January 1st, 2016 to July 31st, 2018. 31 months. And so when you take that number, what we were doing is we were subsidizing the fire department to take care of the people outside the city at a rate of 4.9% is what we were paying. The county was giving the $67,500. So if you look at that, out of $387,000 that they were using to cover Fire District 22, the people in the city who only make up 1/3 of it were paying 4.9 times more for their fire protection. And the people who live out in the unincorporated areas, they don't pay anything. That money comes from a 2-cent sales tax. So they don't pay anything for fire protection. So let's look at it from that perspective. So if I want to say, okay, if the county says that all they give is $67,500 to cover that entire area, if we make up 1/3 of it, shouldn't our cost for fire protection be approximately 1/3 of what, $67,500? If that's what the county says, that that's all it takes to provide volunteer fire department for that entire Fire District 22, then that's my answer. Then our response should be, hey, if all we need is volunteer firemen, our price should be approximately 1/3 of what the county's paying. And if that's wrong, tell me why it's wrong. Then why are we as a city paying 4.9 times more and subsidizing the fire department to go out and provide services outside the city? So based on the numbers that Chief Murphy gave, and I appreciate you, Chief Murphy, for giving me these numbers. And so inside the city, we currently have 1,317 houses. Outside the cities, 1,317 inside the city, 1,275 outside the city. So the city has approximately 42 more houses. Not a substantial amount. So basically, we're equal if you look at it from that perspective. Inside the city and outside the city. But we make up 1/3 of the fire district, and yet there's 2/3 out there with almost as many houses, and they're paying less than 1/10 of what we're paying for fire services.
So can we make a comment to that? I mean, since you're talking about county at the moment.
No, you can get up and talk here in a few minutes, okay?
But anyway, unfortunately he left, but that's my position, that realistically, if we, and I've been from the very beginning, I'm making no bones about it, I've said that I don't think that we need a full-time fire department based on the size of our city and the number of calls, and I've got the statistics if you want to see them. We don't have the kind of volumes that are necessary for that. The majority, especially if you're looking at fire-related calls, out of the fire-related calls, I'll just give you those real quickly because that's something that is very important. So when you look at the fire-related calls, out of there were 147 fire calls in that 31 months. 147 fire calls. Only 30 of them were inside the city. 117 of them were outside the city. So what are we paying for? So that means that out of that 815 or so calls that were, only 147 were fires, but 117 of those are outside of the city. So we don't have that many fires. So do we really need a full-time fire department? So that's my position. We can argue that all you want, but I'll state that based on that, I think we're paying way too much money. Whether it's $329,000, whether it's $520,000, it's more than what we should be paying as a city. Oh yeah, the 147 is not full fires also. Those are some of those calls that they got called out to, but they actually got terminated, or there were grass fires or other things. So out of those actual structure fires are much, much smaller. But anyway, I digress.
Okay, thank you.
Robert Quinn, 1401 Carrara Drive. So I think we're back to kicking a dead horse. Thanks to the ordinance and the SAFER grant being accepted, I believe this is what we're going forward with. The only question left is whether we're going forward with a merger with the MCVFD or not. Is that your all's understanding? Raise your hand if that's your understanding. Or that's your understanding? Mr. Turnbull?
We haven't discussed it and voted on it, so now
But the ordinance was voted on, the SAFER grant was voted on.
Yes.
That's where we're at, and to break it down to the simplest possible terms, the question left is whether we go forward with a merger with MCVFD as part of that future of MCFR or not. In your mind, is that the last major question we've got? Yeah. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
I highlighted this last week, I wasn't here, but I came in by video teleconference, and I tried to get this across, the point across, before we voted on the safer grant, to make sure that everybody understood that when we accepted this, that was for hiring personnel. Once we accepted that safer grant, that kind of really precludes us from being able to hire MCVFD anymore as an entity, because if we have our own firemen, we can't necessarily go out and hire another entity to provide
And
fire
to
service
this
support.
point, yes, you could hire those physical people,
But we can't
but not
hire
the
the entity.
entity.
Exactly.
Yes, thank you. Mrs. Baldwin? That's what I've summed up is your understanding of where we're at today, correct?
I'm still involved in researching right now, and I still want to have a discussion with Commissioner Bailey. I was expecting him to be here today, and he
Okay.
wasn't.
That leads to my next question.
Sure.
Do you all also understand that we have an obligation to provide fire service to the rest of Fire District 22 outside of this city?
Our district, yeah, exactly, based on what?
For one thing, interlocal agreements.
Yeah.
If you all aren't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, yes, it is in there. It doesn't stipulate paid personnel from here. It says volunteers, volunteer department, which is what they pay for.
Right.
So if we ever chose to, we.
So let's assume for a moment that you don't merge with MCVFD, and MCVFD dies on the vine, liquidates as an entity. Who do you think is going to be providing fire services to the rest of the Fire District 22?
Well, may I ask a question here?
Certainly.
Why would you assume MCVFD should go?
I'm not assuming that. I'm saying let's assume for a moment, let's spitball for a second, that MCVFD dies on the vine, right? You guys have stood up your MCFR, MCVFD dies on the vine. Who provides fire service to the rest of Fire District 22?
That's not even on my mind for MCVFD.
It's a core question
I
because
understand, but that's the thing.
It would be us.
Yes,
it would be us.
there's a process. You have to be the first responders for Fire District 22. Okay.
So this-
Right now, MCVFD is. There has to be a
Correct.
change that needs to happen. Now, as
Correct.
far as our servicing here within the city limits, we say that our department's going to take care of our city. Now, they can absolutely have a contract agreement between the county and MCVFD, just like last year.
It has been the county's point all along, and it's a point I've tried to make with you guys all along. If the MCVFD did not exist at this point, now that you have decided to establish MCFR, we're on the hook, one way or another. We are on the hook for rolling calls in Fire District 22 outside of the city.
That is not, the MCVFD is still here. You're talking as if MCVFD is gonna poof and be gone. They're here. They're right here. If they want to have a contract agreement with the county and
Okay,
the
so
county
they're
wants
here,
to.
they're here, and
If they
you
want to
hire away people, and so they're no longer able to, you know, they call you for interlocal assistance.
Who?
Let's assume MCVFD calls you for interlocal assistance,
Okay,
right?
right.
You're gonna roll.
We are gonna be good neighbors. Patrick, Chief Murphy is by far,
Okay,
he's been doing
so-
really good. I can't say anything negative about him at all. You know, he's been really helpful in communication, and he's doing well with
I
But
beg
you
I beg you to ask Commissioner Bailey this question when he is up here September the 11th. And I would bet you money he's gonna say what I've said. Because I've heard him say it before to Scott certainly several times. Right? Do you recall that Commissioner Bailey has told you that you will be responsible for calls in the county portion of Fire District 22?
Only if we sign the contract.
The radio contract?
No.
Double check. Because I've got a recording that has him telling you, if you sign the radio contract, you are required to respond to calls in Fire District 22 as a whole.
Which
Please.
radio contract? The one they presented to us?
Yes.
The one they presented to us and that we struck out 2 items, one of which was that we agreed to be responsible for calls in the unincorporated area. We did not sign a contract that said we are responsible for the unincorporated area.
It
They
was
presented it and this council struck those items and sent it back without them included.
And they were
One
supposed to
step.
One
come,
at a time, please.
they were supposed to come, he was supposed to be here today, and he was bringing that as a discussion point. Now it's being moved to the next meeting. Again, that is one of the reasons why I was looking forward to him being here.
Okay.
In answer to your question, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, yes, you're correct in what you're saying about the original contract. Original contracts were discussed by the council. They were sent back to Mr. Bailey, or Commissioner Bailey. He has since sent something else back, although he asked that it be postponed or tabled because he could not be here. Your point is a valid point of who would be responsible, in the hypothetical situation if the VFD was out of existence. We understand that. Right now, that's, can we answer that question right at this moment? No. We still have to discuss those.
Stop you for 1 second. Adrian, the face you made just now tells me that is not your understanding. Is that true?
No, I was just listening.
If MCVFD liquidated, you don't believe we're responsible to respond?
Like I said, it's a process. I honestly think we
It's
need
a
to have.
process, is not an answer to my question.
It is a process, sir.
I will
We
yield the floor to other people who
We
should have a
have a
chance.
time that we need to have a discussion with Commissioner Bailey to discuss.
It's been a process for how long now? This has been the answer for how long now? It's a process. This was your answer last year when you promised us we would have a contract by year's end. This has been the answer all along.
Right.
No,
To answer your question, yes, the potential is we would be servicing that area.
Thank you.
All right. Do you live in the unincorporated area?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hold on just 1 second before you do. Is there anybody else that lives within the city limits that wishes to make a comment before I open it up to the citizens in the Fire District 22, the unincorporated area? You can't have a second shot, Mike. I said that at the beginning. Nice try, but no.
I just had one question.
Nope, I can't do it. I've got to be fair to everybody, and I said what I said. I got to live to my word. But is there anybody else that lives inside or resides inside the city limits that wants to make a comment before I open it up to those in the unincorporated area or Fire District 22, as we know it as? Going once, going twice. All right, no more comments from citizens inside the city limits. Sir, if you'll please state your name and your address.
Yeah, my name is,
Hold on. Some of us are getting old and we need to make a restroom break. Can we take 5 minutes? Please. And I will keep them for 5 minutes. I won't make it long.
This is what we're referencing to, if you're asking about these numbers, what was presented back in the summer. And then the numbers come down to like, so if you add these numbers up, and then this is what they were wanting in 2018.
This is part of them, this is. I was asking about.
So it looks like we're
I understand that, I'm just showing you about in regard to like what all this change of process has been, we're talking about renegotiating, the amount that was being added, just paid them. And then they had a 1.8 million. This is what they were wanting. This is what they were
This is what
wanting.
MCVFD
Yeah, this was last year, they came to the council, they presented this idea to us. This is a proposal. Here, I apologize.
That's okay.
I don't mean, I'm not trying to give you a paper
No,
cut.
I get paper cuts more.
So this is what they were wanting, for us to go in the following
Oh,
year.
they wanted
The
administration.
insurance and the state to do this. That's what we share with you. use it. They were like, oh, you're gonna do it, we have to get a bond to be able to get something. Our budget was 1.2 million at that time. So, anyway, I know it seems crazy.
Well, I just feel bad that, yes, this is what they gave you, but why you guys don't come together and say, okay, this is not. I'm so tired of volunteers.
We aren't gonna get along anyway.
Knickers in the twist. You guys are wrong. I don't think it's
Those guys up there. Who's going to volunteer in this city to be firefighters? One or two.
That's nothing. To risk their lives.
Oh, I don't know about that.
No, I mean, that's, I get paid more.
If you go, we argue in circles. Meanwhile, 1 October's coming.
We actually
However, for most weeks at a time, we've agreed to accept money from federal grant.
But I agree with you.
So, really sticking it out at this point.
Why can't we stick with it? Figure it all out. Well, that's the problem.
So, basically,
I mean, you
all agree up there. They all agree.
So I see, well, look at this.
we don't know anything at that time.
But we don't even have any. So where would they put it?
Well, they can be out, they're outdoors right
Ask Karen. Next time it starts,
They did, and they are. Like I said, it was personalities on both sides that
You saw them, they've agreed. I absolutely.
I totally understand. Right now, a lot of them are jobs. But I know what volunteer firefighters. They have sources of income. Their own sources.
You know what?
It would have been, thank you for listening.
You're right, you're right.
It is 11:03.
Yeah, okay, my name is Peter Hankin. I live at 209 Hidden Pass in the High Point Ranch development. I'm on 540.
Where are you from originally, sir? I hear the accent.
A long time ago. I came from the UK, but I've been a citizen. I've worked for the United States government for 20 years. So don't worry, I'm a citizen. Don't arrest me, don't call the sheriff. Okay, what I'm here to do basically, well, let me first thank the volunteer fire department over the years that I've lived here since 2008. Yeah, we've had they've come out, one of my neighbors was struck by lightning, they saved his house. We've had 1 or 2 medical calls out there. And what I'm here to do is to advocate for an emergency service district. And I think Mr. Heron's point that he made about the disparity in calls and the disparity in cost would be served by an emergency service district. This would allow us as unincorporated people living in the unincorporated area to pay for the fire service that we need. I mean, $67,000 is nothing. I'm probably paying 2 cents out of that. That comes out of the general sales tax revenue that the county provides. So what I'm also doing then is advocating for my taxes to be increased. But we need the service out there and we need to continue it. So what I've started is a petition to get an emergency service district started. When I've got 100 or more signatures on that, I shall present it to the Commissioner's Court. And at that point, they will advise you that they've accepted it, and you will have 60 days to either accept the inclusion of the municipality in the ESD or to reject it. And I would hope that you would accept it. It gives you the funding, and I think it would cut out a lot of the, what shall we say, contention that I've experienced over the past year or so that this contract has been discussed. I've heard the previous council meetings in probably the early part of this year talk about ways to get the unincorporated folks to pay into this system, and this is the way, the one way to do it. Because you cannot tax us, the county will not accept any more financial responsibility than you're already getting. So, and we need the fire protection, you need the fire protection in McLendon-Chisholm. It's all incorporated and pay for it as a district. So look forward in the next few months to a petition coming your way. Okay? Whether anybody has any thoughts on that, I think, and I'm rather surprised that you haven't thought about it or considered it already.
Actually, we have.
Okay, why did you reject it?
What do you mean by reject it?
Well, you haven't obviously gone ahead with it because, I mean, it's a fairly simple process to begin.
Last year, one of the things in discussions, I think it was in November, I created a presentation of ideas of funding options for the unincorporated area, and one of them was a suggestion for an ESD.
And it was rejected?
No, whenever I looked out to the people out in my Point Ranch, I talked to the HOA board over there as well as.
Excuse me, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well, we can give you an excuse, sir.
I was trying to get people out in the unincorporated area to consider funding options, and that maybe could consider also an HOA extra fee, but nobody really responded.
Well, that's not practical. That is absolutely not practical.
You know what, I don't disagree, sir, but at the same time, I gave ideas out for people to consider. So, we just never got any feedback or response that anybody was gonna go forward and do any of that.
Well, the ESD then would actually also take the whole concept of fire protection for 22 out of your hands. You understand that it would be a 5-member board appointed by the Commissioner's Court to oversee fire protection in 22. Okay, you would have nothing, tax that it would be an assessment of everybody's property valuations collected by the county, presumably then given to the fire protection district, who would then contract with whatever fire department you set up here, whether it's a volunteer or whether it's the merged district that you seem to be heading into. So, and then they would present their budget. It would be a contract though between the two entities, the ESD and the fire department.
Have you taken any time to speak with any of the fire chiefs?
Sorry?
Have you taken any time to speak with any of the fire chiefs?
Just this evening.
Just this evening, okay.
Yeah. I don't know whether anybody would like to say any comments on an ESD? No?
That's something that has to be looked into and then run through the county and put up for a vote.
Yeah, it will be.
And I think the biggest problem was the amount of money that it was gonna cost to get that put into the election.
It's an expensive process and takes time, I do know that.
Yeah, will take time, and essentially we probably tag it on to one of the elections in the coming year.
Were you advised yet about that cost?
Not specifically, I've heard about $20,000, but as I say, if we tag it on to one of the other elections, that's kind of the...
Somebody has to pay for that. Are you willing to pay for that?
We'll see. That's putting the cart before the horse, though. We need to get it accepted by the county, and then, as I say, it comes back to you. And after that, then it will be voted on by the citizens of the district. So it's
I would definitely encourage you to ask that question. I believe it would be Commissioner Bailey to ask him what would the cost in regard to the election.
Right. But as I say, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, which is what everybody seems to be asking.
I appreciate you coming and saying something about it. Thank you.
And just as one point, when are you going to set up a vote to decide on whether you accept the merging of the two fire districts?
Are we willing to accept the vote?
A vote to accept the proposal to merge the two districts.
It's only one district, the two different fire departments, is what you mean.
Yeah.
Well,
fire
sir.
departments, I beg your pardon, yeah.
Sir, I think to answer that question is, we are gonna have a special meeting next Wednesday to discuss those different options on the table.
Will that be open?
It's gonna be a special meeting, I believe,
They can come.
that you can still come, yes.
Public but not open. Public but not open.
You can attend the meeting, but you won't be able
Can't
to
speak,
speak.
I understand.
So to address one of your questions about that, have we thought about the ESD? Yes, we've thought about it. And so some of the things that you do need to understand about an ESD, that their board is appointed, and then they're appointed for 2-year periods. So they're not elected, so the people of the fire district don't have any authority over them. They're appointed by the county commissioners court. So you're getting taxed and you have no representation. So that's concerning that you have a board who makes decisions for your fire safety without any input by you.
But we do have the representation through the commissioner's court. That's, yes.
They're at least allowed to speak at the commissioner's court.
Exactly.
Right, that's enough.
All right. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Todd Aarons, 1520 Sterling Ridge Court. I live in the unincorporated area. I think what we're looking at here is everything's boiling down to money, right? At the end of the day, everybody wants a fire department, okay? I serve on the fire department, make it no secret, I serve on the fire department. I moved here 5 years from Wisconsin. Never did I ever anticipate that I was gonna see this scenario in Texas. I've got a lot of neighbors that are not from Texas, and they cannot believe that this is happening in Texas. This is why we move away from the state that we came from. I'm from Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's political culture is like this 10 times. It's terrible. It's constantly bickering, nobody's getting along, it's awful. And this all boils down to money. And what we're missing here is this jewel that we call McLendon-Chisholm. Guys, we are 33 miles out of downtown Dallas, one of the most thriving cities in the United States, if not in the world right now. Okay? We're not Houston, we're not the mess down there. Okay? We're not Austin, we're not, the Madison of the South, where it's all just craziness. Okay? We're 33 miles out of downtown Dallas. We should be so proud of that. Prosper can't say that. Weatherford can't say that. We've got a beautiful lake that we're on. So here's the deal, guys. You guys have floundered 3 years with no business plan and no development. I moved out here because I'm on an 1.5 acre lot. I've got almost 2 acres. Love it. Okay? The last person that sat up there in the middle had us all drink this, try to get everybody to drink this Kool-Aid, that any type of development was a bad development. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, so here's the deal. A little bit of development is a good thing, guys. Stop fighting about fire service. People rally, obviously, behind the fire service. People, this is a sense of pride and community around the fire service. I would love to see a sense of pride and community in this community, in McLendon-Chisholm. Your biggest asset for tax dollars, it's the ranch, it's the lakes, it's the ranch over there. But where we were not too long ago was, I'm a deplorable, and I'm a freeloader, okay? We're an asset to you guys. If you treat us well, we might join the city. You made the people of Sonoma Verde feel terrible because they bought a house with a 0 lot line. These folks want to be out here with us. And they were made to feel just awful that they bought here because they had one of those small lots. And that's not fair. Guys, Sonic and Shell brings in, looking at your books, about $114,000 a year in tax revenue. Go to South Lake Carroll. Go to Trophy Club. Go to Roanoke and look at the proper business development with the proper businesses. At $114,000 a year for one little Shell Sonic that's really only busy at noon because you can't even get gas or anything at noon there because of all this great development we have here. If you had 5 little businesses like that set up properly with the building design that you want, look at Flower Mound, the beautiful buildings they have for their retail.
We do understand about the development.
Okay, but you're missing, here's what you're missing the point. All I've heard about is sustainability, right? How do you get sustainability? Rockwell, 67% commercial, 33% residential. Commercial is where it's at, guys. And I'm not saying I want Amazon here. That's not what I'm saying. We love the rural. Guys, stop worrying about the sustainability. Bring in the things that we need. These citizens, they don't want their taxes to go up. I don't want my taxes to go up. You guys have control over that. If you had 5 businesses bringing in $100,000 a year, there's your $500 grand. And then you're going to need a fire department anyway. So there's your $500,000. Sense of pride and community. Let's rally this community up. Let's get people behind this community. You guys, 3 years have gone by and you guys just want to fight about fire service. You guys should have put together a business development plan to bring some neat stuff down here for people to rally behind. Gosh, what's a Christmas parade, a Halloween parade, something. People will rally behind the fire department. They don't like to rally behind city councils, guys, okay? They rally behind first responders. This is nothing new to you. So I've said my piece, but please, we don't want this to end up like the cities that are maybe not as likable around this area, okay? We want that element. We want the South Lake Carroll. We want the Trophy Club. That's what we want. And you guys have the power to do that. And then you have the revenue to keep their taxes down, to redo streets that need to be redone, and bring that sense of community here. I appreciate your time. And please, I've been on the fire department for 4 years. I love serving this community and all its citizens. Please put this together. You got one heck of a bunch of good guys that we're here for everybody. We're here for everybody, and we always will be. So just, take care of us. We will keep taking care of you. Find an alternative to get that money here. Thank you very much.
Good night. Oh, I'm gonna stay here for a few more.
Just nice, sir.
It's past my bedtime also. Hey guys, I'm John Crumpley, 163 Dove Landing. And I was the county representation on the negotiation team. So I've got a lot of background in the numbers and all the different things that we had talked about over those weeks. But the first thing I really want to talk about today is I was also the president of the HOA for High Point Ranch for the first 3 years. In 2003, our community came up and they were worried about being taken over by Rockwall and Terrell. And they said, hey, what would it take to be part of McLendon-Chisholm? So we took that action and we came and we talked to the city council in 2003. And the answer was no, we don't want to grow. We don't want you to be part of the city. And if you really look at the model that we have in High Point Ranch and the lakes, it's exactly the model that you guys are trying to build out. No difference. In 2009, 2010, High Point Ranch came back and we talked to the city council and we said, hey, we want to be part of the city because we're worried about being taken over by Rockwall. Real high taxes, we like your tax base. Second time, we were told no. Now then, with decisions that you make, there's actually impacts. If we take a simple house, and I'm just giving a rough estimate, say $350,000 a year, based on your tax rate, that's $537 a year per house. We have 321 lots. Just to make the number easy and realistic, I only say 200. That's basically $107,450 a year of taxes that you could have collected from my community. If we'd have started this in 2003, you would have $1.5 million in the bank unless you spent it. Okay? So when you start talking about how do I grow or how do I get money, you can't say I don't want to grow. We've got the communities right here that look exactly like you, and we came and knocked on your door. We said we want to be your partners. We want to be part of this community. And now what I see is a $67,500 with pennies, and I'm being told that I don't pay for anything. Well, I was rejected. You guys rejected me. What was the word? Deployable? Right? So what's wrong with my community? Why do you not want it to be part of McLendon-Chisholm? Why do you not want us to be part of the solution? Now then, when it comes back to negotiations, you guys were talking about a firehouse for $500,000. You're going to have to go get a loan. As part of the negotiation team, we said $246,000 a year for 2 years, and we would give you all the fire trucks, we would give you the firehouses, we would give you the land, and we would give you everything that we had. $500,000, you would have the full fire department in 2 years. Now I'm hearing you're going to talk about getting a loan for $500,000, and you're going to pay it back over how many years, Ms. Belcom?
There was options on there, 3,
5, 10 years. So you could have paid $500,000 2 years. And the thing that's really interesting about that, guys, you were budgeting $329,000. So that's $87,000 that you would have in your account, and that would give you, what is that? Just real rough numbers, say $180,000 over 2 years. That's in your banking account, and you would have a complete fire department. Everything that the negotiation team did was based on the budget that you had and the level of service that you were asking for. We gave you everything on a silver platter, but it was all the little small pieces, Mr. Trumbull, that you guys were putting in to sour the grapes. You guys were putting in specific elements that was not a contract that was worthy to sign because it was all one-sided to the city. It was not about partnering. So if you guys really want to get through this situation, you guys need to learn how to partner. Nobody at that negotiation table was there to take you and throw you under a bus. We were actually trying to figure out a way to make it work. You guys lost out on over $1.5 million, and plus we got the neighborhood next door to us. That was a decision 13 years ago. It's going to be a lot harder now to get my community to be part of you because of the way we respond and the culture and the things that we see coming from this city council. So that's pretty much all I got to say. You guys got to really figure out, they got a really good plan. It's a little bit more expensive than the plan that we gave you, 6 months ago? But the decisions that y'all made to buy more equipment and to look at the grant, you guys are actually putting the 7x24 service and the resource cost. You guys are actually pushing the value of the price up. It's the decisions that you guys are making, and not having the long-term visibility to what those decisions are doing, which is causing the problems. So that's all I've got for you. I'm not going to beat up on you anymore, and I'm not going to make anything personal, but I just want you guys to know that you need a partner. And there could be a possibility as this council turns over that you might be able to be part of of my community, because we're not coming to you, you guys are going to come to us. And hopefully you guys actually change the way you do business so that we look at you as a partner, not as an advocate, because that's what you guys are today. Excuse me, adversary. So, thank you very much.
My name is Robert Jones. I live at 309 Lost Spur in the unincorporated area of District 22. I want to thank Mayor Short for allowing myself and all the citizens to speak tonight. I left the MCVFD on May 31st of this year, so I want to make it clear that these comments and thoughts are my opinions, and I do not represent the MCVFD. I also want to make it clear that when I speak about the council, it is directed at the previous council and the 3 remaining members that are responsible for this self-imposed problem. Now, I wrote this down so that I didn't speak off the cuff, because I've been told that perhaps sometimes I'm too direct and I hurt people's feelings. So this will keep me in line. I thought about all the things that I could speak about tonight, as I have firsthand experience in much of what has been transpired over the past years. I could be hateful because of what has been done to me, because that would be the easiest thing to do. But I decided to speak about something that might help you as council members with the issue at hand and might not otherwise be addressed. I started to think about it and ask myself, what is the root of the problem, and why is every single thing in this town such a beatdown? There's one common theme in the method of operation for everything that has held true with you 3 council members and the previous council, and that it is to create problems to solve, and that the council will be the subject matter expert on everything. Now, while it is your fault that this fire department problem that was created just so you could fix it and be the heroes has drug on now for more than 2 years, it is mostly because of how you were groomed as new council members with no experience, and therefore you know no other way. You were made to believe that you as council members should be the subject matter experts on everything, and to trust no one's opinion, even if they are the expert, because they are all conspiring against the council. Tonight, I'm asking you to let it go, to trust in the opinions of the experts and the wants of the citizens. You have 2 chiefs here that have dedicated their careers to public safety and have decades of experience. You have a mayor and 2 other council members that have decades of public safety experience. Your city administrator is a retired police officer with decades of experience, and yet you are going to tell all of them that you know better. And it's because you were made to think that you are supposed to know more than anybody else on every topic, which is indeed impossible. I can assure you that Google and YouTube have nothing on the real-life resources that sit before you. So quit being so hard on yourselves. Trust the opinions of all your experts and the citizens that you represent. Then weigh the facts and opinions and make an educated decision on what is best for your community. You'll find that your job just got easier, that people will value you as a council person, and that those 6-hour council meetings will be a thing of the past. I know there's a lot of details left to work out, and we don't know everything, but I put my trust in Chief Murphy and Chief Simmons and rely on them to tell us what the best course of action is. And the last thing I'm going to say is, the problem with trusting no one is ultimately no one will trust you. Thank you.
All right, do we have anyone else?
I just want to talk.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sherry Couch, 936 Eagle Pass, unincorporated. It's just, the reason you haven't heard from people in the unincorporated area is because we've never, ever had the opportunity to speak. This is our first opportunity, and although we have to go second for whatever reason, glad to get to say something. As far as the ESD is concerned, it seems like that would have alleviated the issue which we were presented with when we first started coming to the meetings, which would be to equalize the cost of the fire service. And I understand you've got ordinances and you've got money coming in federal, but everything can be rolled back. Everything can be rolled back through a vote or turn the equipment back in, whatever. You know, at what cost, I'm not sure what that would cost if you did that. But if you want more money from other people and other people are willing to pay for it, then it seems like a pretty easy option to go through, even though there's a vote, and I know it costs money for the election and everything else, but if people are willing to do it, it just seems like a productive way to go, so that everybody wins. We're all in 22 together, we're all pulling the same direction, so that we're all protected. And then we don't have to have all of this, well, you know, you get to pay, but you're not represented, or it's $160,000 if we roll up to your door, or whatever. None of that works for anybody. So it seems like something that you could do if you would choose to look at it whenever the petition comes around, where you could roll it back. I don't know what that would cost to give this stuff back with the equipment they already have, but it seems like an option that you should at least consider, and then weigh out the pros and the cons from that, instead of just saying, no, we're not gonna look at that because you didn't say anything about it. Well, we never had a chance to say anything about it until tonight. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I think that's it, right? Okay.
Can I ask you a question, Ms. Patch?
Yes.
Have you ever asked the Commissioners Court, have you ever spoke with them and said that I want MCVFD to service the unincorporated area?
I've talked to Mr. Bailey on several occasions about our service. And I've spoken with Mr. Short, I think shortly after he was elected, and I believe I talked to you and several other councilmen, and I've tried to get the point across. And when Mr. Bailey speaks to me, he talks about the 67.5, not sure it's gonna be here, you know, all of that. It's a process to get it done. But I mean, heaven knows this has been a process, and we're still not settled, or at least.
Has you actually said to Commissioner Bailey, Mr. Bailey, I would like for you to consider to make sure that we have a contract with MCVFD. I want the county to contract with MCVFD directly. Has any of those types of words come across to the Commissioner's Court?
I asked him about fire service and the continuation of the fire service, and it was always with the understanding that it would be the MCVFD, yes.
They were able to contract directly last year.
Right.
And, you know, so you have that right, that your voice can be heard to the Commissioner's Court, just like how citizens from McLendon-Chisholm talk to us and all that. So there is an opportunity for you to be able to speak at the Commissioner's Court that way.
Well, I have spoken with the commissioner, and I'm not the one that didn't have fire service. If I'm understanding correctly what's gone on, I've had fire service all along, and I realize that. But I thought the problem was that you, the city of McLendon-Chisholm, are saying that it's not fair that you bear the burden of the expense, or the majority, where we're not paying our quote fair share for the money. And so to pay our fair share, it seems the only way would be through the ESD, where we're all taxed based on the evaluation, like we're taxed for everything. And, you know, and I've been at the meetings, and the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm said, well, you know, that's not fair. I'm already paying 15 cents, and then you're gonna throw this on top of that. Well, I'd say just roll the tax back. Whatever we end up paying.
That is one option. That's
Yeah.
true. And there's also utility funding as well, which could be $5 taken out of your kind of, that's what you can pay per household. Like that's a small smidgen can go towards that department. You know, there is other financial ways, not just ESDs.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, you're talking about the two different things, two standalones or one combined. We're not sure about you in 22, you unincorporated people, you know, we're not sure what we're gonna do. We're not gonna have to really take care of you, the county is responsible for you. I mean, that's kind of the gist of what I heard. That's my perception of what you've been saying tonight, yes. And, you know, I think Mr. Wynn's point simply was, well, for 67.5, they can't be solvent. So, I mean, logically, I don't see how they're gonna operate on 67.5. And so when that goes away, then you're still paying for us, and we're still in the same boat that you're gonna feel like we're not paying our fair share. So, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me to keep kicking this can down the road, you know, and this is our only opportunity to speak, so I wanted to bring that up.
Well, ma'am, I will tell you that what you asked about, at least look at it or consider it, that will be done.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. If we are done, folks, and there is nobody else, I'm going to adjourn tonight's town hall meeting. Thank you so much, everybody that took the time